Good evening, everyone. This is the May 10, 2022 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. We have called the meeting to order at 6:34 p.m.
It's actually
This meeting is, I'm sorry?
7:34.
Did I say 6?
Yes.
Oh boy, we've done a lot of business already. 7:34, thank you. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. This act, signed by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, includes an extension of the remote meeting provisions. Under these provisions, all votes will be cast by name on an individual basis. So with that as background, let us turn to agenda item number 1, which is a request for determination of applicability, the Neponset River Bridge and Granite Avenue. Steve, can you lead us on that one, please?
Yes. Samantha, are you here? Sam Hogan?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Would you like to describe the project and tell us what you're doing, please?
Sure. This is the Mass DOT is planning to replace highway lighting along I-93 from Austin to Quincy. Part of that work will be along I-93 and some of the ramps in Milton. In Milton, it's all existing foot poles that will be replaced in the same location, as well as a load center and some conduit under the Neponset Bridge. A number of the poles are located within the buffer area. There's 38 of them. 37 of them are further than 10 feet away from a wetland, but one is less than 10 feet, so it doesn't meet the exemption, which is the main reason for this RDA. In addition, 2 of the poles in the load center are located within land subject to flooding, and these 13 poles are located within the riverfront area. So that's generally the description of the project.
And remind us, Sam, of the exemption.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry.
If you don't have it right there at hand, I do.
I do. I just have a number of pages. I'm also traveling, and I had a bit of an issue, so I'm on the side of the highway, not as prepared as I meant to be. I do apologize.
It's a night like that for everybody. So let me
And Steve, for the commissioners, and welcome, Tom. The references in April 1st, 2022, communication from Samantha with attachments, including photographs, maps, and the like.
Right. And the exemption is in 310 CMR 10.02, parentheses 2, parentheses A, parentheses 2. And this is, according to the Wetlands Protection Act, activities conducted to maintain, repair, or replace, but not substantially change or enlarge an existing and lawfully located structure or facility used in the service of the public and used to provide electric or gas services are exempt from regulation under Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, provided said work utilizes the best practical measures to avoid or minimize impacts to wetland resource areas outside the footprint of said structures or facilities. And a similar exemption is provided in the Milton Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 15, Section I, or 1. I think that's all you need to hear to take a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions or comments by members of the commission?
So just to confirm, this is a similar exemption that's used for the utility work notices we've received as well. Is that?
That's correct. Very similar. Yep.
Any other comment? So there would be a motion framed. And Steve, how would you like that framed?
I think just a motion, I would suggest a motion to approve the request. This is a request for determination, is that correct? And so it's a positive request with a negative impact.
And Steve, so I'll make that motion for a negative determination for the request for determination of applicability.
Thank you, Hans. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ingrid and Todd. Any further comment?
I would also suggest to use the erosion protection as shown in the plans. That's all. So it would be a -2 with conditions.
Any other conditions? Such as our boilerplate? Would that be in order?
Yes, it would.
I would also request that we be notified when the work is actually intended to be
It's
kicked
scheduled
off.
to start and starts.
I'm sorry, Samantha?
Oh, I just said yes, Seth. We plan to
Okay.
notify you when, know there's a date and before it actually starts.
Sure.
Okay, with those friendly amendments, I'll take a roll, please. Hans?
In favor, aye.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Tom? You're on mute, Tom.
Aye.
And Arthur is aye. So we have one.
Hey, Steve, Arthur, good evening.
John,
Jordan
welcome.
joining. Hi, I'm just by telephone. My computer is still warming up. My apologies for being delayed. So continue and I'll just listen.
Okay. We have just voted affirmatively for a negative impact with conditions in item number 1 submitted by the Mass Department of Transportation. And Samantha, thank you very much for your time and your presence tonight and for the preparation of the materials for the review. Very helpful.
Thank you. Again, sorry for very unanticipated what happened today. So
Drive safely.
I shall. Thank you.
Item number
Sounds like
2.
she was up. What's that?
John, are you with us?
Yeah, yes. Sounds like she was on the expressway as well.
Right.
John, continuing at your request, item number 2 is a request for determination of applicability, 24 Woodlot Drive, Lot 6.
Good evening.
Yes. Please identify yourself, Mr. Putri.
This is Vince Patiri and my wife Tamar Patiri at 24 Woodlot.
Thank you and good evening. And it's great to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you too. Good to see some familiar faces.
We have your paperwork following up on the site visit. Would you like to walk us through what it is that your current plans are following the visit, please?
Or we've asked A. Thomas, who's a local nursery, to potentially, if approved, install arborvitae down our driveway. We are within the 100-foot buffer, and so three, maybe I know we're demonstrating 3 here, but I would like to ask for permission, if necessary, to extend 4 arborvitae into that particular area. And those are notated down there on the bottom right there. So that's one portion of that, and then we're also looking to add 4 additional privacy white pines in the backyard, which would also fall within that 100-foot buffer zone. And those are notated by the other yellow trees highlighted in the backyard of the property. How's that for a, does it make sense?
That is a good introduction. And did you have an opportunity to bring in a certified arborist to take a look at the neighboring trees within your property line?
We did not look at the additional trees, the ones that we spoke about that maybe looked like they might be a little bit damaged, but we think right now, based on your advice, that those look safe for the time being. We haven't brought in the arborist, but the white pines are natural, as you mentioned, so we did choose those. We also spoke with the local nursery about the arborvitae, and we talked to them about potentially doing a green arborvitae, as you mentioned. However, the gentleman did say that they are potentially could be eaten by deer, as they sometimes get into the arborvitae, and recommended that we do go with a green giant arborvitae, which I think we did speak about, and you said you could approve those under certain circumstances. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Any comments from members of the commission, please?
I have a comment.
Mr. Palmer.
Thank you for using the white pines instead of the Norway spruces.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for speaking with us that day. It was, we learned a lot.
Other comments?
Just one, Arthur. This is Steve Ivis, agent. In this case, there are a lot of deer in the area, and so I don't have a huge problem with using the green giants. Maybe Ingrid, you could weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, Steve, I remember you brought this up at the last meeting. Can you remind me the distinction? I think one of them is non-native, or can you remind me?
The green giant is, a Franken tree.
Yeah.
Whereas the North American arborvitae is the native. But
Right.
And they don't grow as tall either. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the deer eat them like candy.
It's like caviar to a deer.
That's right.
Yeah.
There'll be nothing left of them in 1 year.
Exactly.
Right. No, I agree with you. I mean, the bigger issue is the deer problem.
Indeed.
Mr. Cannon, our chair, has joined us, and John was at the site as well for extensive review, and we want to thank you for hosting us for a good part of your day that Saturday.
Our pleasure.
John?
Oh, sure. No, I've been
Turn it to you.
all along, and I support the plan, and I compliment them on their dotting I's and crossing T's and coming before us with this request. Arthur, do you want to continue, and you may want to ask for any comments from abutters and members of the public, but then take it to a vote?
That makes sense, Mr. Chairman. That said, are there any further comments from first the commission? Hearing none from abutters of the public. Hearing none. Steve, the nature of this?
This one is a request for determination.
Is there a motion, please? This is a request for determination of applicability. Todd?
Yes, I'll second that.
I thought you moved. Did somebody else move?
John, did you move before me?
No, no.
Oh, I thought you
Todd,
did.
Todd moved. Is there a second, please?
I was about to. I would, but I think there's a motion on the table, Mr. Doyle, and that would be to issue a negative determination of applicability with our usual caveats and provisions, and that would be that there'll be no heavy equipment that would be stored overnight within our jurisdiction. Although I see most of these are outside of our jurisdiction, or many of them are outside of the jurisdiction. But there can be no storage of equipment or refueling of equipment within our jurisdiction during the planting process. But that's easy. I mean, you get plenty of place to have the equipment and keep it out of our jurisdiction.
Sure.
As we did with the previous agenda item. Is there a second to the motion by Mr. Hamilton?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. And we'll do the roll. Hans?
I vote yay in favor.
Ingrid?
Aye.
Todd?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
And Arthur? It passes all 6 votes. Thank you. And thank you for being with us.
Can I ask one final question?
Certainly.
Are we awaiting then documentation of this vote then to move forward with the progress, or will it be an email, or what's the next step for us?
Next step is for the commission to sign the determination of applicability and issue it to you.
Okay.
And that may take a week or two for everybody to sign.
Okay. All right. So we should expect something mailed to us, or would it be an email, just for clarity?
Usually mailed, but you're welcome to pick it up at the office if you want to call the office.
All right. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Sure.
Everyone have a wonderful evening. Appreciate all the help.
All right. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, take it away.
All right, sir. 3 on the agenda. Oh, actually, did you just, if people are waiting around, we do have a request for continuance of number 6 on the agenda. I don't know if you announced that, but
Not yet, no.
if I just, so that people don't have to wait if they're anticipating members of the public that are interested in 582 Blue Hill Avenue. That's the 40B project up next to Delphi Academy. And the applicant has requested a continuance until the June meeting for that. And we have assented to that continuance. So that one will be on June. Steve, do you have the date for June?
June, let me think, June 14th. Yes.
All right, good. So let's go back to the agenda. Number 3 would request for a determination of applicability at 1259 Brush Hill Road. It says Lot C on the agenda, but I believe it's actually Lot D. Steve, can you confirm that?
That is correct. We made a mistake when we were in the field. So this is actually Lot D that we're looking at.
All right, and for the public's benefit, we were, that is, the commission was at the site at a public meeting on, help me, April
23rd.
23rd, all right. And if you go in the roadway, that's Hemingway Drive, the first lot on your left is D, the second lot is C. Taking the second lot first, we actually voted on the site to issue that negative determination because we felt it was not jurisdictional to us at the time. But with respect to the first lot on your left as you enter from Brush Hill Road, which is Lot D, we did have some questions. And I don't have the minutes in front of me, Steve, you may, but I know that I was concerned, I think the commission was concerned with some of the placement of the flags. And we asked for soil boring logs and a location for where those soil samples were taken. And there was a question about the placement of some of the flags, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I wonder if the applicant could explain what has been provided.
Hi,
And
good evening. Yeah, it's Chris Thomas with BSC Group. Yeah, I thought it was Lot C that was on the agenda tonight, so that's what I was preparing for. But as far as Lot D, I guess there was a question on the location of the flags. But I did confirm with our wetland scientist in our office that she flagged the wetlands based on the species that she saw out there. And that's what determined her line. And the line did shift to the west, closer to the building lot. There was a soil boring done, but it was on the wetlands off of Lot C and not on Lot D.
All right, our concern was that the corner of the house, and I don't know if it would be north or east, but it would be the corner of the house closest to Brush Hill Road. We were somewhere between, I'm going to ballpark guesstimate 30, 35 feet, something like that. But we have a 25-foot non-disturbance zone, and we questioned the placement of the flag because it was a little bit difficult to figure it out from the foliage. So that's why we were looking for storing soil samples in that area so that we made sure that we were away from that 25-foot non-disturbance zone.
So
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So we have plotted those flag locations onto our site plan. And as the proposed house sits right now, we would be within that 25-foot no disturb. So we're going to come back with a different house layout that will not be in the 25-foot no disturb. So we have to redesign the house layout so that it fits within the site.
All right, well, fair enough. Then it sounds like that we should continue this, but I don't want to short circuit any discussion of it. Are there any questions from commissioners?
John, I'd just say that that's satisfactory from my perspective and consistent with what we observed on site. The buffer was right up against the house, if not beyond the house, from where the flags were, or we anticipated where the flags should be. So what Chris has described would be an appropriate solution.
I agree. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or would like to make a comment? Chris, if I can put it back to you, do you think you can get that done by our next meeting in June?
I think that's what we're shooting for. But I'm not an architect, so I need the architect to get me a new house. So that's what it's determining the time.
Sure, that's fine. I'm not pushing you in any way. I just don't want to be delaying you in any way.
Nope, you're not. It's really yep. We got to get a different house layout.
All right. So we will, when that's submitted, we can put you back on the agenda. And with that, with the assent of the applicant, we will continue this matter until sometime in the future, either June or perhaps July.
Great.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is number 4, notice of intent, 1452 Canton Avenue. I think the applicant is here.
Not sure about that, John.
This was withdrawn, was it not, Steve?
Well, let me just read you a 2-sentence letter. I have withdrawn my application for the realignment and repaving of my driveway from the Milton Conservation Commission and ask that since no services were rendered, that my 2 fees, notice of intent wetland fee of $95 and the Milton Wetland Bylaw fee of $848 be returned. That was John David Corey, May 3rd of 2022.
And Steve, did we expend any resources in terms of site inspections or anything that would justify retention of the fee, or did we do nothing essentially?
We did not. I never got over to the site, anticipating this might happen.
All right. Well, in my view, it's almost like a no harm, no foul. If it's withdrawn, then it may be appropriate to reimburse the fee since nothing was done and it has been withdrawn. But I invite comments from commissioners and members of the public as well. Commissioners, anybody that would think that we should retain the fee, or would you agree to reimbursing it?
No, that seems to make sense to me.
I agree to reimburse.
Okay.
John, you may wish to take a vote for this.
Oh, absolutely. Are there members of the public that have a question or want to make a comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to reimburse the fee on the basis that nothing was done and no resources were expended on the part of the town or the DEP for that matter?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll
Right,
start
thank you.
seconds.
All right. Any discussion?
Who seconded?
I think Todd.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll just look at we'll go through this as a individual count. Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Arthur Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Hans Van Lengen, how do you vote?
Yes.
Todd Hamilton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ingrid Beatty, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I am late. Wendy said that she would be late. I don't want to miss anybody. But I don't see Wendy here. So John Kiernan, I vote aye as well. That's unanimous, so we can reimburse the fee. Next on the agenda is notice of intent 648, 652 Canton Avenue. And I will start with a question. Phil, are you here? Yes, you are.
I am, Mr. Chair.
I have to ask this question. I've been traveling for the last week, so I have not been up to date on my emails, et cetera. Do you have a comprehensive permit yet? I believe the hearing was closed, but do you have a comprehensive permit?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do.
Good. Perfect. I haven't seen it. And the next, I had two parts because I didn't want to be inconsistent with our last month's meeting.
Mhm.
So the second question is, I did see some emails last night and today when I returned that the area is going to be flagged next week. Is that correct?
Yes, we can, I guess we can talk about it as we get into the application, but there is an area of the application that was predicated on approximate wetlands based on GIS. The attorney Ned Corcoran sent an email or a letter into the commission noting that we've had a conversation with him through our representation, and we've agreed that we're going to have that area delineated just to make sure there is no room for doubt in what we're suggesting over there.
All right, that seems to make sense.
Yes, and I think Steve has his screen shared, and where his cursor is highlighted, that's the area in question. Yes.
And just to get the public oriented, can you show us where Canton Avenue is and Elm Street?
Yes. So, Steve, you're doing a great job. I'll mute up, but Canton Avenue is where the cursor is moving up and down, so east-west across the frontage of the property. The other relationship road that you want to be aware of is Mergewood Drive, which is on the westerly sideline. Thank you very much. That's the other roadway that is property adjacent, as well as Holmes Lane, which is on the other side of the property. That's correct. Yes.
Understood. And can you, I don't have my own chart in front of me, and I can't read it on this chart, but the stream area
Yes.
that we did some years ago, a few years ago, do you know the date of those flags?
So we have an ORAD that was dated January 9, 2020, which identified and certified that intermittent stream through the ANRAD process.
All right, understood. And the area that I think that he's already indicated would be the upper right of the drawing as we look at it on the screen, correct?
That's correct. It's an off-property area. It was, we didn't really get into the full presentation, but originally this project that we're about to discuss was only on the lands of 648 Canton Avenue, which was about 4.7 acres. Through conversation, reconfiguration, modification through our comprehensive permit process with the zoning board, we also acquired and absorbed 652 in the process, which is the home to the right side, page right on the screen. When that was, thank you, right there. When that was done, we adapted the approximate wetland area just to denote the buffer zone work that may be required ultimately when we appeared in front of this commission. That's correct, right there.
All right. Now, are there any differences, for instance, in the number of units between your application to us and in the comprehensive permit?
No, sir. No, sir. No, we have not made any site plan changes. No site plan changes have taken place between the application to the commission a couple of months ago and the closeout of the permit with the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we're dealing with identical plans, sir.
Perfect. All right. Would you give us an explanation as to what the project involves?
I'm happy to. May I share my screen?
Certainly. I say that quickly. Is that doable, Steve?
Yes, is Sean still there?
I am.
Good. Can you give Bill screen sharing ability?
I believe he already has it. All you need to do is stop sharing your screen, Steve, and he'll be able to do so.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that. There we go.
Great, thank you. Let me, it's the host disabled participant screen sharing. Do I have to put a quarter in the side of the computer? I can try. So it's disabled. If somebody has control, they could release that.
All right, sorry, that's been fixed.
Terrific, thank you. Just a second. Okay, and I'll confirm, is the commission able to see the screen share at this point? Okay, yes. Terrific. So this screen really is my starting point for the conversation here this evening. It is exactly the same screen that Steve just had up on his display for members of the commission. I want to just flip it over if I may. I just took a liberty, just so you can see it a little more clearly, just what we're about to discuss here this evening. So the two properties that you're seeing, 648 Canton Avenue is the screen left property, the existing home, which has a long asphalt driveway and an existing tennis court. And then 652, which is again another single family home with its driveway that comes in off of Mergewood Drive, hence that reference for the benefit of the commission. So I've taken the liberty of just highlighting a couple of areas, just because that's what we'll talk about this evening. The red line is the delineated intermittent stream, which is an off-site resource area, which creates and extends a buffer zone onto our property, primarily the 648 property, but a portion of 652 is certainly impacted by that buffer zone. And then to the westerly side of the site, or page right, the red area is again that approximated GIS boundary based on general location. The yellow is the local 25-foot no disturb buffer, and the blue is the 100-foot buffer off of that red wetland resource area. And the same for the intermittent stream. Yellow is 25 feet off of it, and blue is 100 feet off of the red intermittent stream. So that's what we're here to discuss, is obviously the jurisdictional areas here on the property and how they relate to the project. Let me just flip screens back if you'll bear with me. So what we are bringing to application for the commission is what we have completed our permitting review on with the Zoning Board of Appeals. As a reminder, it is a comprehensive permit, which means that our application is made through the Zoning Board of Appeals to certainly dole out all local permits as allowed by the state statute. So what that means for this application that we're going to talk through this evening is the ZBA becomes the administrator and the issuance authority of all local permits, in which case the application here with the Conservation Commission tonight and this notice of intent is made under the Wetlands Protection Act only. So we're looking at it with the lenses of the state performance standards, the state stormwater regulations in tow. The plan, as you see it on the screen, is 10 buildings. It's 116 total units provided, divided amongst those 10 buildings. 185 parking spaces are provided across the site. We worked very long and hard and diligently with the zoning board, peer review consultants, Tetra Tech, Davis Square Architects. We had lengthy and voluminous conversations, certainly in both directions, with abutters, with members of the zoning board, with the fire chief, with lots of different departments within the town of Milton that resulted on the plan that you see here in front of you this evening. So it really is a long winding road, a long winding collaborative effort that got us to where we are. 10 buildings. We have one central clubhouse as you enter into the site. We do have an elongated driveway, very much mimicking what's out there now in terms of the 648 entrance to the existing home that's there. This configuration allows us certain aspects of the site to actually be functional and built. I'm sure through the process of the hearing, we're going to talk a lot about grading. We're going to talk a lot about elevations. We'll talk about stormwater. The elongated driveway allows us the opportunity to elevate the site necessary to install the stormwater management areas that I'll get to in a moment. So this long road, I don't know if my cursor is, I'm doodling, but this long road allows us to create a grade change that essentially creates a grade plateau in the upper area of the site. And what that grade plateau allows us to do is install stormwater controls below our pavement area. And we'll talk about that in great detail, I'm sure, as we move forward. I'm going to just flip screens very, very quickly. Again, I want to show now the relationship of the site for the benefit of the commission relative, again, to those same buffer zones. So everything that we're going to talk about here going forward, I want to start out by aligning that everything we're asking for is for permission for work within the buffer zone. And that buffer zone is only the 100-foot buffer zone. So no work is proposed within the 25-foot no disturb. We've been able to maintain that. It is certainly a local bylaw performance standard, but we've been able to maintain that through the application that's in front of you. And the areas of work, as you'll see, are on page bottom, which is for the construction of 4 portions of our existing buildings, or the proposed buildings, excuse me, and the necessary grading associated with creating that elevated plateau that I referred to moments ago. Along the southerly portion of the site, again, that off-site wetland area on the property of 658 Canton Avenue, same situation, only buffer zone work, only within the 100-foot. And in this case, it's a very, very small portion of one of our buildings, and then some transitional slope area, green landscape slope, that allows us to transition that elevated grade back down to existing grade within our property limits. Important to note, again, I know we're going to talk at great length ultimately in terms of what the systems here on the property are. None of our stormwater systems are located within the buffer zones to the wetlands. So everything that we are doing is located beneath our pavement, beneath the central core of the site, or for the upper plateau. And then for our lower areas, our access roadway, we have surface basins that are built into the topography, low collection areas, but again, also outside of the 100-foot buffer zone area. So let me flip back to the other plan, and we can talk about that in a little more detail. Okay. There's a slight delay because of the Zoom. So what we're looking at here is that same image that I just had on the screen moments ago, only part of the plan set. It doesn't have the same highlights on it that I showed moments ago. But what I want to draw the commission's attention to is this area along the westerly property boundary. And I'm going to try to zoom in as cleanly as I can for everybody. And again, our work area, and I'm going to define it, the buffer zone right here. This buffer zone is approximately through here. Forgive my crudity of tracing as we're talking. But what you'll notice is it is for the rear portions of our buildings, buildings 1, 3, 5, and actually if I pan over just a little bit, it has a small portion of building 7 is inside that buffer zone. Sorry, I'm just waiting for my computer to catch up to me. I apologize for jumping around on you. Get right back to that image. Just wanted to make sure I capture the full scope as part of our discussion. So again, just to replicate, this is the 100-foot line through here. This, for frame of reference, again, is our 25-foot line. And please don't allow the thickness of my yellow highlight to denote that the 25-foot buffer line extends onto the property. It does not. It actually touches the property line right approximately here where the cursor is. So there is actually no extension onto the subject property based on the ORAD delineation. So the area of work here is for the construction of portions of buildings 1, 3, 5, and 7. And that totals approximately 13,795 square feet. And then the additional area, which would all be earthen transition, earthen slope, earthen grading, is approximately 22,484 square feet. So that's the area of disturbance that we are asking for permission to construct as part of this notice of intent. I'm going to pan now, I guess, southerly, and let me bring in a little more detail into what we're asking for adjacent to the other offsite wetlands. There we go. And again, highlighting the same areas, this denotes, this is the offsite approximate wetland area. And again, confirming that we are going to go out, we're having the same wetland scientist from Ecotech flag this offsite property through Attorney Corcoran. He was able to secure access through the property homeowner here to allow us to go on that property and delineate and survey that information. And then similarly off of that line, this is the 25-foot line approximately. And then the buffer zone extension onto our property is approximately in this fashion. So the reason we took the aggressive risk here in terms of filing the application without a delineation is it is our opinion this is all buffer zone work. There is no opportunity that there's a performance issue. We do not believe that there's going to be a situation where that wetland moves significantly closer to the property line where the 25-foot no disturb buffer creates extension onto the property. So essentially, regardless of where that wetland falls at the end of the day, the wetland resource area, we're going to be asking for permission for buffer zone work in this area. And in this case, it's a small portion of building 9, roof area. We do have a sidewalk that extends behind buildings 8 and 9 for connectivity. That will be constructed in the buffer portion of it. And then again, slope area, transitional slope area back down to the existing grade and tree line within that area. And to get into specifics of numbers, there's 208 square feet of building 9 that we're requesting within the buffer zone and 4,631 square feet of earthen alteration within that buffer zone. Now, while we're looking at the grading and drainage plan, I want to bring up our sort of highlight for the benefit of the commission, how our stormwater management systems are going to function here for this site. It's a very complex system. It went through a lot of review in a lot of different ways from a lot of different sources. We had Tetra Tech as the town's consultant who reviewed the stormwater systems on this property. What we're proposing is a series of underground infiltration systems that'll be located underneath the paved portions of our roadway. And I'm highlighting those here generally. We have a good number of them. And the reason we have a good number of them is we have a lot of different things happening. The soil out here on the property is fairly dense till at depths. We have a high water table. So in order to be able to construct these systems, mitigate the runoff conversion from the woodland, grass, residential home condition that's out here to the plan that's shown on the screen, we need to hold back quite a bit of water to make sure that we are meeting the performance standards of the stormwater standards in terms of peak rate of runoff and peak rate of volume reduction for the application. And that's what these systems do for us. They are plastic chambers underneath the pavement. I'm sure the commission or members of the commission have seen these many times in the past. So it's not new technology necessarily, despite the size of them, but it is a tried and true mechanism that will hold back our water. And what ultimately happens with our water systems is these chambers will serve to recharge portions of it to ground. And then once the systems reach capacity and there's an overflow situation, it travels via piped system and then ultimately connects down to the municipal system at Canton Avenue. Our systems, though, provide that reduction necessary to make sure that the downstream systems are not incapacitated, are not surcharged, and we do not create any downstream flooding concerns or problems. Other elements that are on this screen as we take a tour of the grading and drainage is the long driveway that I referenced earlier that creates a grade change for us. We are creating some smaller superficial stormwater ponding areas on either side of the roadway, here, here, and here. And what these are not huge volume reductions, but what they are is it's an opportunity for us to create some collection areas, some irregularities in the terrain that essentially create some visual interest as you come up into our main site driveway. But also it's a diversion point for stormwater runoff coming down our site. Now, what do I mean by that? So our site, generally speaking, grades from an upper terrace elevation here, and it generally grades down in this direction. And through correspondence with the peer review consultant for the town acting on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals, one of the elements that he wanted to make sure we baked into the plan is that in the event there's any problems with stormwater containment on the upper plateau, that there's a jettison point before that water wants to run down the hill. Now, I don't want to paint a picture of standing at the bottom of a slope, seeing a tsunami run down. Certainly not the case. But if for any reason any water bypasses our upper systems, we're allowing diversion to go into these stormwater collection areas before it's allowed to go down to Canton Avenue. It's a factor of safety, it's a check and balance, and it's something we were happy to build into the plans as we work through the situation with the town engineer. Now, part of what we've done along the roadway is we wanted to ensure that there are walking paths for our sidewalks as part of our grading and drainage, our grading plan for general site accessibility. So the irregular shape that you see here that I've highlighted in the red is to ensure that everything remains below ADA accessibility tolerance. Now, I know that that's outside of the commission's interest, certainly, but what it did afford us the opportunity to do is, again, create the visual areas within the irregular walkway to create the basin ponding zones as part of our landscaping plan, as part of what we're doing on the site. Now, the other element that we have here, and I'm sorry to be so long-winded, I just wanted to get the bullet points out there, and we can really take a deep dive into any aspect the commission wants to do, is one of the things that we'll also talk about in great detail Again, outside of the 100-foot jurisdictional area for the Conservation Commission, but we did work very hard with the Zoning Board of Appeals members, neighbors, et cetera, to make sure that we were providing greenscape buffer from our property to the homes on Holmes Lane, and certainly preservation of some large specimen trees that are located on site. So while it's, again, not directly related to conservational-based issues in terms of the Wetlands Protection Act, I certainly feel it's important to note for the benefit of the commission that although the project looks dense, looks like there's a lot of coverage, we made sure to put forth as much good effort as we could to secure and save the trees that were important through conversation with members of staff here in the town. And we've done that along the easterly side of the site, along the Holmes Lane, along the residence through there. And then subsequent to that, we have in place for members of the commission, and we can talk about them. You have received a full stormwater report. And in that stormwater report, it outlines our compliance with the 10 stormwater standards as promulgated through the Wetlands Protection Act through the stormwater standards. We would ask you to review those and obviously affirm as part of the order of conditions that we have in fact met those. They have been reviewed obviously outside of this forum, but we understand the commission will want to review and render their own opinions. In short, that's our application in a nutshell. I think I'll take a pause. I'm sure there's probably a lot of questions that will come out of it, and we can really talk about some of the deeper dive aspects of it, Mr. Chair and members of the commission.
Well, thank you. Very articulate and well presented. I've got two big questions,
Okay.
so you don't have to drill down the details, but when you talk about elevating the site, what is the height over existing grade and what is the quantity of fill that you're contemplating?
Sure. So we have areas of the site. I don't have the cut and fill plan on my presentation slide deck tonight, but we can certainly get that to you if you're interested in seeing it. We have areas of 7 to 8 to 9 feet of fill, dotted throughout the landscape. And what I'll do is I'll zoom in along this westerly border. So that way the commission can get a sense for some of the sloping that we're doing. So in this case, if I look right in this lower corner, and let me just highlight it, this area here, for example, is approximately 7 feet of fill. Now, what that's necessitated by, if I were to pan, I'm going to just pan up a little bit further, is we have, again, our stormwater systems located down the spine of our roadway. And in order to meet the performance standards of the stormwater systems, we need to have at least 2 feet of separation to the estimated seasonal high groundwater table that's native to the site. And the reason the site is elevated is to make sure that we are providing that 2 feet of separation and then the necessary cross-section for the installation of the stormwater chambers and then the installation of the asphalt section itself, gravel and the asphalt that you would drive upon. So your second question was, what are we dealing with in terms of earthen quantities here? So you're likely going to hear a lot of numbers floated around both by me and probably through testimony by others. We originally had provided an analysis to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the number we gave them was 30,000 yards. And in that 30,000 yards, it is the total net import of drainage materials, asphalts, gravels, foundational elements, concrete, and the earth and fill necessary to create the site. Now, through attrition of the site, through modification, through revision, through conversation and testimony from some others that have looked at the site, the number is more nearly 50,000 yards. And again, that's an all-in comprehensive number. So it's not to depict that it's 50,000 yards of fill coming into the site. It's 50,000 yards of stuff necessary to build the site, of which, of course, the fill is the largest element. but also asphalt, gravels, foundation, the drainage components, and the like that goes into the site. So it is intensive. It was certainly part of a very deep conversation with the Zoning Board of Appeals in terms of providing a construction management plan. And that construction management plan, which falls into their court, is to make sure that trucks are adequately dealt with, the fill is adequately placed, precautions are adequately taken, police are adequately used, and then everything is scheduled, everything is processed. We need to be cognizant and aware of the traffic along Canton Avenue. There are a lot of elements that went into it that, again, I'm happy to talk about. I don't want to, you can ask and I'm happy to answer, of course. They were elements that came up through the zoning board discussion as the permitting authority across multiple boards. Obviously, this commission has interests relative to wetlands protection, but do know that there is a construction management plan that was provided with the application that will be continually reviewed, continually refined. And as the project gets further and further along the process and the contractor gets connected, that gets advanced and we can really dive in the details on that further.
So are we talking about approximately 3,000 truckloads of fill coming in?
That's the number. I don't have it. I don't have it in front of me exactly. I think that's the published value that came out from various testimony that was provided by the abutters representation team. Yeah,
we had some experience with the capping of the landfill, which created the Quarry Hills Golf Course.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the issues is what are you capping it with? Because that may affect the water percolation and runoff, et cetera. There was a lot of clay that was used to cap the landfill. Mm-hmm. So what do you anticipate you'll be using for fill just to get the buildings up or to get up above the water table?
So excellent question. So the answer to that lies in, it depends on where. So underneath the buildings will be what's referred to as structural fill. So structural fill is a very select material, obviously to support the structure of the building. So that's what will come in under anything that supports a building or a foundation. In the case of underneath our stormwater systems, we will use a granular fill. And what the granular fill is, it just allows the water to flow through the soil underneath it. So it's not as restrictive as the native till that's on property, or that's quite frankly throughout the town of Milton, but it is an infiltration capable soil. Now, what's important to note is when we talk about the stormwater capacity systems, our stormwater systems, everything that we've sized here is predicated on the materials that are on site, which are generally low quality, very dense, and low infiltrative capabilities. We do not seek, nor have we asked for any credit in our stormwater sizing for the select granular material that'll be installed under the drainage.
Right. And we've had some experience as well with under parking lot detention systems. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I don't know whether or not it was an installation problem, but remember, some of you may remember that at 2 Granite Avenue in the parking lot, there are some underground detention basins. I don't know if they're Caltech, I don't know what the design is, mm-hmm. But they had some, I think they were oil delivery trucks or some kind of delivery truck, and it collapsed. Mm-hmm. The pavement gave way. Now, I know you said you had 2 feet of cover, and I can't tell you whether the problems at 2 Granite Avenue were related to insufficient cover, but you're putting a lot of detention space beneath your parking area. And I'm just, wondering, is the 2 feet of cover sufficient given the volume that at least it sometimes could be empty?
Yes.
Sometimes it's filled with water, but sometimes it's empty.
It's filled with water temporarily, and that's the important part to note here. So it is predominantly empty. So the short answer to the question is yes. We are required to provide a minimum of 18 inches from the top of those chamber arch systems to the bottom of the asphalt. And when we do that by structural loading standards, we meet H20 standards, which is essentially pavement grade for a roadway. So they are structurally sound. Arches are, as you can imagine, structurally sufficient elements. When properly installed with proper amounts of backfill and compaction, truck loading, passenger car loading, construction traffic should not be problematic. Now, construction traffic does bring in a different layer of specific interest for two reasons. You know, as we're constructing these stormwater systems, we want to ensure that our construction traffic is not overly compacting the areas that we're intending to recharge water through. So that's a precautionary element that we need to take upon as part of our construction. And then at the same time, until these stormwater systems are installed and adequately covered with the right amount of fill, the 2 feet, we can't have traffic over them. We don't want to subject them to improperly loaded traffic that could compromise them and could lead to something akin to what you experienced on the other site at Granite Avenue.
Understood.
And what I have on the screen, I'm sorry to interrupt, what I have on the screen is just a cross section for the benefit of the commission, so you can see what would actually exist under the pavement section. Sir, sorry to have interrupted.
No, that was a good explanation. And I'm going to completely jump, and I know there'll be questions from other commissioners, but I also have a question, changing gears a little bit, about a tree survey. Do you know now how many trees you'll lose within our jurisdiction? Now, I know you said you're going to try to save some legacy trees, but let me kind of reverse that on you and say, how many are we losing?
I don't have that count, sir. No. Don't have that count.
All right. And we do have a replacement performance standard for trees removed within our jurisdiction. It used to be 3 to 1, and we've now changed our format, and we use a sum of the circumference or a sum of the diameter at breast height.
So,
and that's a lot of trees potentially.
It is, Mr. Chairman, and we are aware of your mitigation standard. But what I will draw your attention to is that is a local standard. So with the comprehensive permit, the application is made under the state statute and doesn't adhere and seeks waiver from local standards that would otherwise make the project infeasible to construct. So in this case, the Zoning Board of Appeals acts as the administrator of the local Milton Conservation Commission bylaw administrator. They are technically the issuer of the permit for that, and they've done that by issuance of the comprehensive permit.
I understand that, but still under the wetlands regulations, we still have replication authority, I guess you'd call it. And so the DEP doesn't turn a blind eye to replicating and landscape replacement. But there are state standards as well.
But I do not believe, and I guess we can talk about it in greater detail, I do not believe that the state standards provide for loss of trees in terms of mitigation replacement. I mean, certainly if there's loss within a resource area, we understand that, but loss within a buffer zone is not prescribed.
All right, there are, I'm sure, a lot of questions. Commissioners, any questions? And actually, Hans, I'd like to, and Todd, I'd like to hear from you about the volume of fill. And just so that I'm no surprises here, Phil, you know, one of the things I'm looking for is that I know there's a high water table there, having lived across the street and had a wet basement. I know the water table is high, and as you know from the Blue Hill Avenue site, I am interested in mounding, and I have I will confess my ignorance. I don't know what the impact of putting, 30,000 cubic yards of fill on top will do to mounting. I mean, you're still building basements. And I don't know if the basement or the lowest level of the slab or the base of the concrete or the footings or whatever the lowest part of the building is that going to be below the water table? And does that create a mounting issue here?
So there's a lot in that question. We do not have basements for this project. So there's no occupiable inhabitable space below grade here. It's a slab on grade construction. We have performed mounding analyses. Our mounding discussions were plentiful and bountiful and voluminous in the Zoning Board of Appeals forum. We looked at it in quite a few different ways. A lot of experts weighed in on the situation in terms of what we've done. I think to boil it down to a simplified statement is, again, you had asked a direct question, Mr. Chair, how much fill am I bringing into the site? And we said in areas 7 to 9 feet, averaging 4 to 5 feet across the site, generally speaking. But the number below the stormwater system is 2 feet. That's it. That's the number. So there's 2 feet of granular fill being brought in underneath anywhere there's a stormwater system. So what falls away quickly when you start talking about the mounding analyses, the total depth of fill, the total import volumes for the site need to be taken offline. Anything underneath the stormwater is simply 2 feet. And within that 2 feet of the granular fill, that's the recharge area for the stormwater runoff that's going through the prefab chambers that I showed you a moment ago on the screen, and then ultimately infiltrating through that 2 feet of soil, that separation, and then ultimately infiltrating into the native ground, that the till that's on site, sir.
But you're talking about stormwater runoff. I'm talking about groundwater.
So that's correct. So there's obviously a confluence of the water. So there's the native groundwater table that's on site. And again, it's approximately 2 feet below the existing grade that's out there now. And we're maintaining that 2 feet of separation from the bottom of our system. So what falls from the sky can only go in 2 areas. It either runs off the site or it goes into our collection system and gets recharged to the water table. When it gets recharged into the water table, it becomes part of the groundwater mounding analysis. It becomes part of that temporary surge of water as the water is moving through the granular fill and then joining with the native water table to then move on and do what it's doing. So I think, not to put words in your mouth, your concern sounded like, well, what does that additional fill do with that mounding analyses? Well, what it actually does is it actually helps us in that we're putting in really good, clean material that helps dissipate the water across the entirety of the site. And one of the things, let me bring this up because, inevitably these things are going to come up. So we'll put them all on the table early. So if the commission can see the graphic that's on the screen, I do not want to take credit for this graphic. I did not prepare it. This was prepared by Tetra Tech, who is the consultant for the Zoning Board of Appeals. But what it really does is it's a nice summary graphic as to what water is doing out here on the site and how the site systems function and whether or not they are actually potentially problematic from a groundwater perspective. So quite simply, and I do justice to the author of this picture, but I will very quickly walk through what I'm referring to here. Starting at the upper corner, that's precipitation falling from the sky. When precipitation falls from the sky, it goes one of 2 places. One, it either goes infiltration, meaning it goes to the natural areas of the site that are uncontrolled by stormwater collection, or it goes as runoff here, where our runoff ultimately then goes into our stormwater systems. So the runoff then becomes a combination of what goes into the ground and what gets released out of the system. And then the total infiltration that goes into the ground is a combination of the letter I, capital I, which is the uncontrolled infiltration on the remainder of the property, and the I with the subscript S, which is the infiltration from our stormwater system. That's what goes into the ground. And then what we have to look at from a site engineering perspective, stormwater management engineering standards, is the total discharge from the property, which is a combination of capital D, which is the runoff discharge, slope discharge, areas of water that are uncontrolled, and discharge that comes out of our storage system, which is the overflow, the municipal systems, et cetera. And what this concluded, without having all of the numbers present, is this little summary table here, the pre versus post infiltration change, that for the average storm events, 1 inch of rainfall, that's what we'll get, every now and again, or every week, every couple of weeks, the high frequency, low volume storm event, there is a net zero change. The water that goes into the ground today is going into the ground tomorrow. The water that runs off continues to run off. In the 2-year storm event, there is a slight increase in volume of 0.09 acre feet. And what does that conclude? By this asterisk, across our 7.5 acres of site, there's a 1/10 of an inch of rise of water in that case, a slight temporary rise where over the course of 96 hours that disappears. In the 100-year event, which is the high volume, low frequency event, there's a reduction of 0.17 acre feet, which means because of the controlled system, there's actually less water running off the site, less water leaving through runoff potential, less water leaving through uncontrolled sources because we are recharging in a controlled and dedicated manner. So all of these systems working together reduce that opportunity for runoff concerns, flooding concerns, increased groundwater mounding that could ultimately result in concerns to our neighbors, the abutters adjacent to the project. So I apologize, very technical, but I think this graphic is very helpful in just understanding how the stormwater systems will ultimately work out here.
No, I agree. It is helpful. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments, thoughts?
John, if you don't mind, I have a couple. One is I just want to have an understanding of the applicability of the ORAD with the additional wetland resource area being added. I know that was brought up earlier on in the conversation. So I don't know if you want to kind of respond to these one by one, or if you want
how about one by one? That way we can organize. So obviously the additional resource area is not covered under the current ORAD. So we have to delineate that for the purposes of this notice of intent, and we will ask the commission as part of this notice of intent to affirm that additional area.
Okay. Have we received the notice of intent materials? Is that
for this application? I hope so. Yes.
When were those provided?
They would have been submitted back in March, sir. We declined to open the hearing for a couple of meetings because the comprehensive permit had not been issued. So we continued it for 2 meetings without testimony.
Okay. If possible, is there an electronic version of that available?
Absolutely. So through Steve, whatever you need, we'll make sure you have it. So Steve, if you could let us know what to get you, we'll get you whatever you need.
Okay. Sure. In addition, I'd love a copy of that little figure.
Sure.
It's dated 10 Feb 2022.
It is, yes, February 10, 2022.
So you had mentioned the construction management plan. Just for clarification purposes, does that just detail the construction traffic management, or is that construction management for the entire site?
It's construction management for the site. How at this preliminary stage it's intended to be constructed, including discussion on coordination of traffic, truck traffic.
So does it talk through the sequencing and, addition environmental controls?
It discusses sequencing, yes.
So is that included in the notice of intent application?
It is not. No, that was prepared at the request of the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it's certainly available. It is part of the public record. If the commission would like to review it, we can of course make it available to you.
I think we would, specifically as it relates to the construction sequencing and how the work within the buffer zones relates to the overall execution of the project.
Okay, sure.
Regarding the stormwater management plan, as you indicated, there has been a third-party review that's already been completed. I'm assuming that's going to be made available to us, the findings of that third-party review. One thing just for my understanding, so that 0.1 inches of that's per acre foot, or is that the entire using the not the 100-year, is that the 2-year storm event?
The 10-year. Let me bring up that figure again. I'm sorry, 2-year. I apologize. 2-year.
Okay.
And that correlation of 0.09 acre feet, excuse me, is stormwater volume, which again, when divided across the 7 acres that we have is the 0.1 inch that I was referring to.
Okay. And so just for clarification purposes, the stormwater management standards also include the 20 and 50 year. What are the stormwater event, different levels of stormwater events that are reviewed for your discharge? It's not just the 2-year and 100-year, correct?
So we're required to review the 2-year, the 10-year, and the 100-year. So this graphic sort of brackets out the problem, if you will, in terms of, again, I didn't produce the graphic. It was done by somebody else, but again, I thought it was very apropos. The 2-year is really, again, the storm event that you can expect most frequently. The 100-year is the one that is the catastrophic rainfall event. And this is really a depiction of those two extreme conditions, if you will. So in there is the 10-year. That number exists. We can certainly get it for you. It is in the materials. So these numbers are derivative of the drainage calculations that were provided within the notice of intent package.
And yeah, just for clarification purposes, is the 10-year, is it also a reduction from the 2-year, or is it?
It is a reduction from the pre-development condition. Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I have for now, based on the information you've provided so far.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So with all this drainage on there, how are you going to filter it all and keep it clean?
So excellent question. We have water quality treatment devices at the inlet of all of our stormwater systems. So there are two modes of defense. So first is the catch basin. The catch basin that everybody is familiar with, that filters out the large particulates, leaves, debris, oils, gases. Once it goes through the catch basin, it goes through a water quality device, which is the Vortec. It's a Contec water quality, which is a swirling water system. The swirling motion of the water drops the sediments out of the water that are then removed in a biannual basis as part of the operation and maintenance plan. So when the water goes into our underground collection system, it is presumed clean. That doesn't absolve us of the responsibility through the operation and maintenance plan, though, to make sure that those infiltration systems are also inspected annually and cleaned if necessary. So the requirements for that operation and maintenance for all of those elements are also in the packages that you should have. And we can talk about them in greater detail, but that's how we would keep that water clean, sir.
Is there any oil separators in this thing?
So we don't have oil and gas separators, like an MWRA separator. We don't have any requirements for them here. The catch basins act as oil and gas separators by presence of the hood. So what that means is you have the standing water in there that reaches to the invert and the hood that extends above it. If there's a spill, the idea is that the oil and the gas would stay on top of the water as a floatable and not pass downstream.
Phil, you said biannual basis. Should it be semi-annual basis? Biannual is every 2 years. Semi-annual is every 6 months.
I think it's every 6 months, but I'll put the asterisk that if I have diarrhea of the mouth, it's what I wrote in the O&M is what's correct, sir. But we will verify it together.
Please. Yeah.
Yes.
And the town on Canton Ave can take the extra water if you have like a 10-inch storm?
So it's not about extra water. I just would want to clarify that. There's no extra water. No water is being created here as part of this project. The Canton Avenue system can receive the water based on what they're receiving today. So the simple, straightforward mandate under the stormwater regulations is we can't give them more water than they're
No, I understand that. What I'm saying to you is if you had a storm that's like 11 inches of rain, which we've had, you're telling me that all these Caltex will take 11-inch rainstorm?
No.
And none of it's going to go to Canton Ave?
No, I'm not suggesting that. So I'm not suggesting that because you're treading into extreme precipitation rainfall events, and our systems are not designed for that, and the city systems are also not designed for that. City systems are the town systems are commonly designed for a 25-year storm event, whereas private systems end up being designed typically for a 100-year storm event. So there is a disconnect municipality-wise because of how they size and construct their systems. Now, I would not presume to know all the intricacies of the town system, but I would say for certain they were not designed to handle rainfall capacities of 8 inches, 7 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches. Pick any extreme number, and they probably weren't designed for that. And you can observe that during those heavy rainfalls because you end up with the puddling situations on the roadsides on top of catch basins. Eventually, the systems catch up. When they ultimately drain themselves out and that water can move through the municipal system, that's what happens, but it often lags several minutes, hours, sometimes even days behind the rainfall.
So when you discuss a 25 or a 20-year or 10-year, 100-year storm, what are the associated rainfall quantities over a 24-hour period that we're talking about?
Let me flip through my report and I'll try to get you those numbers as we're talking. I will get you those numbers as we're going through the questions. So we'll pin that one. I just got to flip through my report for it, okay? Apologize for the delay. I did not have it at my fingertips for you.
Bill, not a problem.
Yeah. One second.
John, we have a minute here. Can I just add a little history on 2 Granite Ave?
Sure.
As I recall, the failure of the recharge systems at 2 Granite Ave were either a manufacturer or design defect. That product, I can't remember the name of it. It was widely used across Massachusetts and New England, and they had a lot of failures in their systems. And as far as I know, Caltech has not had any of those issues. So.
All right, Sharon, I never knew what it was, whether it was insufficient fill or if it was a product. I actually didn't know. I just know it collapsed.
Yeah, it was product. The one other instance that I recall is the Franklin, Mass. Library had a similar system, and there's a lot of litigation, and it was determined that it was
All right. Thank you for that information.
All right.
Phil, you got what you need, right?
So I have what I need. Thank you for vamping with the question. To answer the question, 2 years, 3.4 inches, 3.41, 10 years, 5.3, 25, 6.51, and the 100 year is based on 8.36 inches of water. It's important now. It's important to note that this is the current rainfall standard used for analysis. Mass DEP actually relies on the older technical paper 40 precipitation values, which are typically less in the 25 and 100 year events. In terms of meeting the state standards, we could have applied using technical paper 40. We've not done that. We've taken credit for the higher rainfall values in terms of dealing with them in terms of the stormwater systems.
And just for everybody else's knowledge, what's happening is warm air holds more water. So as climate change continues, we'll get more and more heavier rainfalls in the 2, 10, 25, and 100 year events. So these atlases are put out whenever NOAA deems it's appropriate. There's been a number of them, obviously, since it's Atlas 14. So as we go forward in time, you'll see Atlas 15, et cetera, and there'll be larger numbers in all the events.
Steve, what are we up to now? What number?
These are the current numbers.
14.
No, you said 14. This is Atlas 14, right? I thought you mentioned 15. Is that the latest?
No, 15 will be the next.
Got it. Understood. Thank you.
Yep. At some point there was Atlas 1.
That's right.
We'll get there. So those are the rainfall values that we use.
Yep.
Okay. Hans, Todd, any other questions?
Yeah, are we getting a review engineer for this for us?
We're just starting. That
Okay.
may be appropriate. I'd like to actually see what is in the ZBA file, but I think as we've done on other sites, that may be maybe a good idea. I think we can always use extra data and extra insight and extra experience as well. I didn't have the other commissioners, Ingrid and Wendy joined us, I think. Welcome, Wendy. So are there any other questions? Arthur Doyle, I don't see you right in front of me, but I know you're there. Do you have any questions or thoughts?
First, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Corcoran has had his hand up for quite a while, so could we let him go first?
Sure. Mr. Corcoran, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Doyle. I'm here on behalf of abutters to the property, both properties at 648 and 652 Canton Avenue. I was involved in representing the neighbors for the full 17 months of the hearing that took place through all of 2021 and a good portion of 2022. There are a number of issues I think I want to preliminarily rebut, or at least raise questions about. First of all is that Mr. Cordero represented that there was a very collaborative effort that involved neighbors and abutters to the project. There was no collaboration. There was not a single meeting with abutters. There was no request for a meeting with abutters. There was no effort to meet with abutters to try and solve abutter issues and concerns. The hearing was somewhat contentious in that regard, but there was no effort at all to find common ground with abutters with respect to any issue raised during the course of the hearing. I think one of the major issues that this commission needs to look at and address is this issue of groundwater mounding. Our experts presented testimony that the amount of fill, the net amount of fill coming to the property exceeds 52,000 cubic yards. 3,300 plus semi-tractor trailer loads of fill, most of which is imported to the site, raising the level of the 5-acre portion of the site, as Mr. Cordero said, between 5 and 9 feet. Building a story of fill, upon which they propose to build 10 buildings that are 2.5 to 3.5 stories in height. There is significant discrepancy and difference of opinion between the impact of that fill and groundwater mounding that will take place. The issue of groundwater mounding came up late in the hearing. The first request for groundwater mounding analysis came in September of 2021. The delivery of a groundwater mounding analysis didn't occur until a hearing in January. And there was some discussion and review of that groundwater mounding. The applicant refused to share any of the details of that groundwater mounding analysis with either the board or with abutters and abutter experts. There was no detailed analysis of the inputs that went into the creation of that analysis. My experts believe that there's a significant potential for increased groundwater resulting from the way the system is installed. And just getting a notice that my computer might die, so I'm going to plug it in as we do this. But there's significant. Left my cord at home. I'm sorry, I'm at a funeral in New York and I don't have my computer. So if I lose you, I'll get back in my phone. There was no geotech analysis ever done of the property and no geotech details shared with either the board or abutters. As I said, there was no analysis shared with abutters regarding groundwater mounding. We presented evidence to the board that there was a likelihood that there would be a significant rise in groundwater across the site associated with the volumes of water that will infiltrate into the ground, and that we think that the groundwater mounding is going to break out at the property lines, both at 652 and at the Kelly property, it's abutting 648, and will have direct effect on the wetlands and on basements that are proximate to the property. And we think it's very important that this board retain peer review expert for the purpose of evaluating groundwater mounding. The chart that Mr. Cordero provided was not prepared by a groundwater mounding expert. It was prepared by a civil engineer representing the town as a peer review expert broadly for the project. He is not an expert in water. He had testified that he was not an expert in water. He came up with his own analysis that was separate from the discussions about groundwater mounding. It did not take into account expertise about groundwater mounding. And again, we think it's significant that this commission have access to peer review analysis for purposes of understanding groundwater flows, the impact of this system, this extensive system on groundwater. My experts, I've got experts who are prepared to testify to this commission at a later date regarding their understanding of groundwater mounding, their evaluation of the limited materials that were provided, and the concerns that were raised going forward. I will tell you that if you review the tapes of the deliberation that was undertaken by the Board of Appeals, there was significant concern about this project. It came very close to voting to deny the issuance of a comprehensive permit. But they were very concerned that if a denial might lead to a blanket granting by the Housing Appeals Committee at the state level, and they wanted to make sure that there was sufficient, or tried to make sure there was sufficient conditions contained in the comprehensive permit to protect the abutters in the town. We're not sure that they did an adequate job. I know that they tried, but they acknowledged differences of opinion between the groundwater mounding experts, and that those differences of opinion were never resolved.
Could I ask a question? I don't mean to interrupt or throw you off, but you said that the applicant's experts did not share the data that supported their groundwater analysis. But what did they present then to the ZBA? Just conclusions?
Present a conclusory report with the conclusions of what they determined, but they refused to share any of the inputs, any of the underlying data that went into the preparation of that report, so that the report and the data could be evaluated by either the town's experts or my experts.
And you said that the town's expert was a generalist civil engineer, but not a hydrologist?
That's correct.
Did,
At the
did
last
you
minute,
did you have a hydrologist?
I do. Michael Mobile, who's an recognized expert in the field, was my groundwater mounting expert. Scott Horsley, the wetlands expert, is also one of my experts. They both very substantial expertise in the area of groundwater mounting, and they're prepared to testify at a later time with respect to their issues and concerns about about the potential for groundwater, rising levels of groundwater, potential for breakout of groundwater into the wetlands and into budding properties, and the premise behind the need for an open and fair analysis of the data and the inputs that go into understanding what may or may not happen with respect to the ground. But that needs to be a clean and clear evaluation of what goes on. And in my opinion, this commission needs its own expert in groundwater mounting to really dig in and understand the inputs and the conclusions that could be drawn with respect to the impacts here.
And who, I should perhaps ask this of Phil, but since you've got the floor right now, Ned, did they have a hydrologist? The applicant,
a gentleman named Dr. Robert Rosine, who prepared a fairly simple report, but provided none of his underlying data.
So, Mr. Chairman,
through council to provide it.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman,
so I didn't mean to cut you off because I asked a question that I normally would have asked you.
It's no problem. I don't wish to necessarily enter into a large scale rebuttal, but just very, very quickly, I know we'll go down the road a couple of times.
Phil, I'll give you the floor completely to respond, but I interrupted Ned.
Okay.
So if you could just hold your comments and let me go back to Ned. I apologize, Ned, for interrupting your flow of thought, and continue, please. And then Phil, you'll have an opportunity to respond.
We have a lot of other issues that we'd like the opportunity to present at the appropriate time. We had volumes of material that we prepared for the Board of Appeals, much of which they raised significant concerns about their ability to issue a comprehensive permit, some of which deal with impacts to wetlands and resources within and proximate to the wetlands, the impact on trees that align the property line on both properties of both the budding properties to 648 and 652. We think that the import of such a significant amount of fill is going to result in significant damage to trees that are just off of the property lines. There's no tree preservation plan, as we understand it. We think that those trees need to be, the impact of those trees need to be understood, and those trees should be preserved. The last thing I would say is one of the key standards in the stormwater the stormwater standards is that you should pursue low impact design as the starting point. You take what the ground can hold and you design a project that fits the ground. This is the opposite of low impact design. This is massive impact. 5 to 9 feet of fill across a 5 acre, creating a 5 acre plateau with 4 acres of impervious surface, draining to underground infiltration systems that sit under the drive aisles in the parking lots. they're going to receive a significant amount of new water and infiltrate that into the ground. And that water is going to go down into the high groundwater table, and it's going to spread and it's going to break out. That's what we believe. That's what we think our experts showed. And we look for the opportunity to present that in more detail with the commission. But I do want to reiterate, the issue of groundwater and groundwater mounding and the potential impact to the wetland resources is significant. And the issue and the evaluation of that groundwater mounding needs to be robust and it needs to be fair. And all of that data needs to be presented and reviewed and discussed by competent experts. The town didn't have a competent expert to review that data. That data came in late in the hearing process. Didn't arrive until January, and the hearing was closed in March. So there was no opportunity to review it. Time was running out on the statutory clock associated with closing that hearing. There was no fair analysis of the groundwater mounding data that was provided. It's critical, in our opinion, that this commission have the full opportunity to review it and evaluate it, because the impacts to the wetland resources and to neighboring basements is so significant that to allow allow an order of conditions without undertaking that full analysis puts the town, the resources, and my clients' properties at risk.
All right, thank you.
Stop there, and I look forward to the opportunity to present with my experts at a later date.
Thank you very much. Phil, you're on for response.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. I just want to make sure we're painting the proper picture. With all deference to Attorney Corcoran and his experts, I think a lot of the statements there are mischaracterizations in terms of what actually happened during the discussions. And again, just very briefly, I know we'll get into it in greater detail in future hearings, but he did, of course, have a team of experts that were certainly hydrogeologists, and I am not a hydrogeologist either, just to lay it out. I'm a civil engineer. His hydrogeologists did provide quite expert testimony, but they provided it in a manner that was very speculative. There were measures taken. There was analysis done by Peter Dillon, who's a hydrogeologist from Tetra Tech, who was hired on behalf of the town, not working for us. We, of course, did have our own expert, Dr. Robert Rosine, who is a hydrogeologist. He provided excellent testimony. It was not a simplified analysis. It was quite complex. They ultimately concluded, the town's consultant ultimately concluded that the groundwater will not rise as a result of this project. Unfortunately, that was not something that Attorney Corcoran's experts wanted to accept, but it is the fact of the matter. He represented that we did not do soil testing on the site. That is a mischaracterization. And I know we're treading off topic to conservation issues, but I do want to make sure that the commission leaves with the right picture here. We did a large series of test pits on the property to establish groundwater elevations and materials. All of those test pits were consistent across the entirety of the site. What we didn't do is send out a geotechnical engineer to perform borings and a lot of additional unnecessary testing. And we provided information to that fact to the zoning board, and we'll continue to do so here with you. We continually tried to make sure the train stayed on the track relative to the groundwater mounding recharge analysis that's promulgated under standards in the Massachusetts Stormwater Protection Standards. Unfortunately, a lot of the conversation steered well outside of the realm of stormwater management standards. And it's in that world where, again, Dr. Mobile, Dr. Horsley, quite expert at their fields, but we're layering in additional information that was really not germane and pertinent to any of the discussions with the zoning board. And I fear they'll do the same here with the condition. Attorney Corcoran denoted that we refused to provide information. Certainly not the truth. We provided expert reports, stamped, signed by professional engineers, professional hydrologists as appropriate. What we did not do is we did not share with them the electronic files that were used in the modeling. We engineers, hydrogeologists, we all have software programs that we use. It's in essence, just to simplify it into manners that everybody will know, we distributed the PDF reports with all of the data written out. They requested the Microsoft Word document in an editable format. We said no. They got the data. They got how we analyzed the site. We just didn't give them the computer simulation models that resulted in the report that was issued. And then I know he attacked my opening statement about the collaboration. Please believe me when I say that the site was driven by multiple conversations on multiple fronts, members of the zoning board and members of the public. We early on had neighbor consultants rather, participating in the working sessions. But through the process, it became clear that their involvement was not to be collaborators and a means to an end. It was really to stymie everything. And ultimately their involvement was discontinued because it was not productive. And we had to continue onward with the town's consultants, representatives from the planning staff. So attempts were made, but they didn't ultimately participate in all discussions and future discussions because it really became counterproductive to really moving forward and finding common ground. So that's it. I just wanted to make sure that it didn't go really unanswered because it can start to create a perception of unresponsiveness and unattentive to detail by us on the development side. And that certainly will not be the case and was not the case.
Let me ask you a question. I'm looking to see if there was any common analysis. It sounds like there were two sides, one saying you can do it, the other side you can't do it. Was there any discussion about a better way to do it or modifications to the design that would allow it to be a viable system that would not create the mounting? Was it like an all or nothing proposition, or was it a suggestion that there's a better way to do this, which may in fact require fewer units or fewer buildings? I understand that. Or yes, elevate. You could put the elevate the ground level. You can put in 30,000 is not such a good idea, but 15,000 might be workable. Was there any kind of that discussion?
Well, I mean, Mr. Chairman, it's certainly easy to say to reduce complexity. You make the project smaller. I mean, of course, it's a true statement. But what our goals were to make sure we reinforced a project that was viable. So I would want to take out the term viability. We assert that the stormwater systems, the project is viable, and what we've presented is the necessity of the project, that's what we're doing. When you're getting into the groundwater mounding discussion, there was a lot of apples and oranges discussion. And what I mean by that is Mass DEP prescribes one method of analysis for us as engineers to do, and that's what we've done. We've done that in accordance with the regulation. It's what's submitted. It's what was ultimately reviewed by Tetra Tech as the other civil engineer and Peter Dillon as the hydrogeologist representing that, who ultimately agreed with that. The conversation was centered around advancement of analysis. So I wouldn't say about viability, it was more, what was the appropriate method of analysis? And we were spiraling down a rabbit hole of complexity that didn't yield better results. It didn't yield a better understanding of results. All it sought to do was really confound and conflate a lot of different issues on the site. And I think it ultimately ended up confusing the board. Consultants ended up battling with each other. It was just really not a good, tenable, workable situation. So all totaled, What we would assert is that what we have provided is the appropriate analysis to support the application that's provided.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hopefully that answered it. I think it was a long-winded. Did that get to the heart of your answer?
It did.
Keep going. Okay.
I thank you. Are there commissioners that have comments? And after that, we'll see whether or not there are abutters or other members of the public that wish to be heard. Wendy, did you want to say something?
No, not.
Okay. I thought you were waving.
Time, John. Thank you.
You were patting your friend there. I get it. Thank you.
It's a bring a pet to Concom day. I wish I had known.
True.
Anyways, go ahead.
Other commissioners?
John?
Yes, Arthur.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very thorough discussion, engaging presentation. I have a quick question for Phil relative to the increased height. My notes say 7 to 9 feet. I couldn't get a sense from the engineering plans what the pitch might be from the existing terrain to the top of the fill, the elevation, new elevation. Do you have any information on that, if I'm being clear in that request?
Let me help understand by asking a clarification question. Are you asking what the pitch and the slope is on the perimeter areas where
Correct.
we have slopes, or along our driveways and the site?
Perimeter area, you read me correctly.
Okay, so we maintain 3-to-1 slopes around the site because that is a mowable, maintainable slope. We have an isolated area adjacent to our fire access road, adjacent to Mergewood Drive. That is a little steeper, that we've compressed the slope in terms of a 2.5, 2-to-1 slope, just because we get very tight to our property area.
Mr. Chairman, from our multiple site visits, the paramount interest, if I can use that term, has been water, both surface water and subsurface water. And it might be in the best interest of the commission to have all of the information on this from all of the sources possible, including the ZBA, so that the commission can review that to make a determination whether or not any additional information is needed or if it's satisfactory.
Oh, 100% I agree. We're gonna definitely need to see what they saw and take a look at it with our own perspective. And I suspect we're gonna need some assistance on this from a hydrologist. I know it's a significant issue, and and by way of full disclosure, I did live across the street, so there's a lot of water in my basement. So I know it's an issue in that area, and I think we need to pay attention to it. All right, are there members of the, well, let me back up. Keep in mind that we should take a site walk here in the relatively near future. And the reason is, as I think Phil outlined, and I think there's been some cooperation from the neighboring folks to allow delineation to take place. So there will be an ANRAD or an ORAD in the near future. Phil, do you know when that's going to take place?
We just reached conclusion with the neighbor to allow us access to the property. So we think we'll be able to put it together next week. We have not affirmed a date. Once we get a date, we have to notify Attorney Corcoran and his client so they can grant final permission. But I don't have a date as we sit here this evening.
All right. Again, I just don't
Yeah,
want
to. We agreed to allow them access after this weekend with notice from Mr. Cordero.
All right. And Steve, again, when is our next meeting in June?
14th of June.
The 14th. Is that doable? And what I'm talking about is, can we get to the site with the flags that delineated wetland lines before June 14th, or should we wait until after the next meeting just to make sure you have time to get it done?
Well, we'd love to get you out there sooner rather than later. And I think we can accomplish in a couple of different ways. So I guess I would ask the question, when would the commission like to visit? And we'll see if we can work within those parameters. It certainly won't be this week, but maybe if the site walk is next week or later, we can accommodate it that way. But even in absence of having the delineation there, I think we can, of course, go to the edge of the property without accessing Ms. Janiga's property unless authorized. We can give a really strong indication to the commission as to where the wetland line is without even the flags having actually been hung. Hopefully they are hung, but I think in the interest of getting the visit done, we want to be much more accommodatable. And we of course also have to coordinate with our current tenants for that site walk too.
Well, I don't think we need to go out there twice, and
No.
we'll definitely have to go out to verify the lines as delineated. So I wouldn't want to do it, even if it's an accurate guesstimate. I want to have the flags in place so that we could verify or, if necessary, change them.
Would, Mr. Chairman, would Steve be the one affirming the line, or would you seek a consultant to do that?
We do. The commission does that.
The commission would do it. That's fine. Where I was going with it was to suggest if you were going to have a consultant affirm the line, maybe we could start aggregating peer reviews. But if the commission is doing that, then that's fine. I guess I have to confirm a date for you as to when it'll be hung.
The commission definitely does it, and there's a lot of deference paid to Steve and his expertise. But that has been our custom and practice for at least for the last 29 years that I've been on the commission.
No disrespect, understood.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I suggest the possibility of Saturday, the 21st, recognizing that the following Saturday is Memorial Day weekend, and the preceding Saturday, as Phil mentioned, is too close.
The 21st is good with me. Could it be done, do you think, Phil?
I think it could be done. Based on my conversation, I think the 21st would give us adequate time.
All right.
And John?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Ned if he could have his review people for the site visit.
I'm not sure that I can have them for the site visit, but I can certainly have them for the next hearing.
Okay.
John, I'm out of town on the 21st, and I think you're suggesting that the 14th is too soon?
Yes, we will definitely not have it delineated by the 14th on our side. Yeah.
The 14th is this weekend, and my client can't have them out there before the 14th.
Okay.
No, that's completely understandable, and that's fine. What about the following week, Arthur? Would that be the 28th?
That's Memorial Day weekend, John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we go into June.
Yeah, my okay meant yes. So
it's barbecue weekend.
Nice try, John. You got us on our 4th of July weekend once. That's all you're gonna get.
I haven't done Christmas yet, though.
Conservation matters never sleep, nor do they take a barbecue. So.
No, but families are at one's heels.
Yeah, right. We all understand we need to be there. It's explaining to our wives why we need to be there. That's where it falls apart.
So what's the following week after that?
June 4th?
June 4th. I can make it on June 4th. Yeah, I can make it on June 4th.
All right. Wendy, Mom?
Yes, I can make it on June 4th.
Tom, is that good for you?
I could, but again, I worked for the abutters on this matter. I think I should recuse myself for both.
All right, understood. Todd?
Yeah, what time? Wendy, I want to do it at 7 o'clock.
6 a.m., Todd.
All right,
I,
all right.
I love how you negotiate, Todd.
8 o'clock?
Fine with me.
What's that?
That's good with me.
Ingrid, is that okay?
Yep, 8 o'clock is okay.
What, Wendy?
That's okay with me, but Todd has to bring me a cup of coffee.
Deal.
That's totally fair.
I like it with
Arthur, is
cream
that
and
good with
sugar.
you?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
All right. So I
John,
think
just to
we're
be
good
clear,
for June 4th.
yeah, John, I'm going to have a hard stop at about 10 o'clock that day. So
All right.
I don't know how much we want to pack into the agenda.
I'm not sure we've got any other site visits on tonight's agenda. So I think that we could accommodate your hard stop easily, Hans.
Okay.
All right, now is that everybody? If I don't see you on the screen, sometimes I might talk right by you. All right, looks like we've got,
John, I can make it as well. This is Steve.
I'm sorry, Steve, is that okay?
I can make it as well, yes.
Perfect. All right, good. So with the assent of the, I should ask for any abutters a question or a comment before we adjourn this matter until the 4th of June. And by the way, for everybody's benefit, that is a public meeting. And we will announce it in the press as appropriate. But are there any comments or questions from abutters or members of the public? Hearing none, we'll continue this until June 4th with the assent of the applicant. Thanks all very much. I appreciate it. And in the meantime, Steve, you and I can work together and see if we can get that CBA file distributed and make sure. And I think, Hans, you were looking for an electronic, we're all looking for electronic copies of the application. So we'll do our best to get that distributed to the commission members. All right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. Speaking from some experience with the other applications we've discussed with you, if you and the commission are, of course, leaning towards retaining a consultant, is that a process that we can start sooner rather than later, knowing the complexities of engaging an outside consultant?
You couldn't have said it better. Absolutely, yes. Right. You know, we're not interested in delay, and that's a very good point. And let's start the process immediately.
Okay.
So if you have some names to suggest, Ned, from your perspective and from your folks, please suggest some names. The applicant does have the opportunity under the statute to say yay or nay, or I guess it's not like an absolute no, but they have an opportunity to object. So I'd like to get as many names as possible. And we had some names before that their plate was full. Steve, you talked to a couple of hydrologists that were interested, but didn't have the time at that time, and perhaps they will now. So if you have names to submit, then I invite that and send them to Steve and to Kathy Bowen, and she'll distribute it to the commission.
Will do.
But I agree, we should start that process earlier rather than later.
Yeah, we'd believe their input to be valuable. Obviously, the commission seeks it, so we see no reason to delay in getting it, quite frankly.
Agreed. All right, thanks. All right, this matter is adjourned until June 4th, 8 a.m. on site.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda is number 6 that has already been continued. That is 582 Blue Hill Avenue. That was at the request of the applicant. That will be continued until June 14th. Next on the agenda is number 7, amendment to the order of conditions at 37 Robin Street. Mr. Hannigan, thank you for your patience.
Good evening. My name is Robert Hannigan, engineer for the project at 37 Robbins Street. We're here with an updated plan, which Steve just put up as a result of the on-site hearing a couple of Saturdays ago. The request is to increase the foundation height by 4 inches. And during the course of the discussions on site, there was concerned about water in the excavation hole, and that was addressed. We have provided a recharge pit with crushed stone and a fabric liner pump from that. However, in my opinion, based on the observations for the past couple of weeks, and especially today, which I sent a picture to Steve, the whole excavation hole is dry, aside from the pit that was the pump pit that was excavated by the general contractor. And also we added on the plan a series of 4 Cultac rechargers with stone around it for roof runoff, which we hadn't shown on the plan prior. So,
and is that sounds like a good idea, but is there any scientific basis for the number and the size of those Cultac chambers?
It was based on what the manufacturer's recommendations.
Well, I understand the manufacturer's recommendations indicate how much water they can hold, but my question is really the other side of the coin, and that is how much water is going to be running off the roof and will be displaced by the foundation.
Displaced by the foundation.
Well, what I'm talking about is the impervious surface. You're going to get roof runoff, and that water is going somewhere.
It's in addition to what we had proposed before. We didn't show any recharge prior, and now we do show recharge for the roof runoff. So it's an added benefit.
No, I understand that. It was just, I don't know if the volume of the water had been calculated to match what the manufacturer's specifications are. I mean, why'd you come up with 4 instead of 3 or 5?
Based on general manufacturers guidelines.
Okay. Steve, did you have any questions about the plan?
My one question is, where is the results from the borings?
From the what? I didn't hear you, Steve. From the what?
Soil borings.
Ah, yes. We did ask for that.
I have a second question. What is the elevation of the stream? Because I went and looked at the Milton GIS, and I saw that the stream is about 40 feet in elevation. And the top of the surface of the ground here was, I believe, if I'm reading this plan correctly, somewhere around 48 feet. Is that correct, Bob?
I don't know what resource you used for the elevation of the stream. I took an elevation on the stream level, and then I took one for the bottom of the excavation. And
okay, and what did you find?
Would you like to, can I finish?
Yes, please.
And they're the same, but I think that's totally irrelevant in my opinion. First of all, we're talking about a brook that's 150 feet away from the excavation hole, and we're not talking about Neponset River, Steve. We're talking about Trout Brook, and in my opinion, there's no correlation between the elevation of Trout Brook and the excavation hole. Furthermore, when I went down and looked at Trout Brook, there was no evidence of any siltation. There was speculation that there was siltation could have been siltation in Trout Brook based on the pumping that had been done prior. There was no evidence of that. There was no evidence of any siltation in the catch basin that feeds Trout Brook. So
did we ever find out, Bob?
I failed to see any coordination between the two.
Could you discuss the type of soil that is between the foundation here, or the foundation hole, and Trout Brook?
I didn't do any CARES evaluation. The boring report is not available. I was not involved in securing the geotechnical person that did that, but that is not available at the present time.
Okay, for the commission's benefit, I took a look at the soil on the, I think it's the northerly side of the excavation. Looks like good gravel to me. Hans, you noted that there was some iron stains in it, right? Is that correct?
Steve, I also looked at it. It looked pretty good material to me.
Exactly, that's my point. Good material for transmissivity of water, is that correct?
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's good gravelly material. I've had that all over the state that I've dug holes and built stuff. I mean, it's just different pockets.
That's what we look for wells, water. To build a water well, we want that kind of material so we can exploit the water out of that location. Water moves very quickly through good gravel. That's just my point. Water from the foundation could reach the brook. That's my point. That's the only point I'd like to make tonight.
But at the bottom of that foundation is, if you're saying it's groundwater, you can put a foundation drain in under a lot of houses. I mean, I did a whole bunch of them in Bridgewater that the DEP allowed. They said groundwater was clean.
Exactly. But there's no provision for a groundwater drain around this foundation on this plan.
But that comes under a building thing more than us. That's between the building.
I agree. But it's not there. That's all. I'm
not disagreeing. I'm just saying that'd be between the building inspector and them, not us.
Right. Okay. It's not jurisdictional for the Concom, but it's just, to me, it's a point.
Yeah.
Well, I know we asked for those soil borings, but the real question from a practical point of view, do we need them?
John, I looked at that site and I've looked at over 300 holes in my time. To me, I don't think you need it, but that's just my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right, but that's the way I feel after seeing what I've seen over the years.
Right, understood. I'm just concerned that if there's water there surrounding the basement and if it's going to be displaced, where is it going? And Bob, I heard what you said about no siltation, no evidence of siltation in the brook, none on the catch basin. Did anybody ever find out where the water was pumped? Because I know one of the neighbors said it was being pumped into the stream. Did Steve, did you contact Joe Prondak and find out?
I did. Joe told me that the water was pumped into a catch basin, first without a sock, and then they had to stop the operation and say, put the sock in like we told you. And then the water was pumped right into the catch basin at the end of a sock, and then directly into the stream. But I don't have any problem with that myself.
Yeah, the catch basin will get the sediment.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from commissioners as to the whether or not this is an appropriate remedy? I think initially when we saw the site, it didn't sound like the 4-inch elevation change was going to be significant. And the problem that we had was the amount of water in the hole. But if this 4 Caltech chambers, recharge chambers, with 2 feet of washed stone on each side, if that would assist in recharging the roof runoff, then are people satisfied that that's an appropriate remedy for what we saw? Tom Palmer, are you, sir?
I think you asked a good question about whether the amount of Caltex are scaled to the additional impervious surface. That's a very appropriate question. I don't know the answer.
I would agree with Tom. Love to see some numbers.
Is that something that you can do? I know there are programs that do that, Bob. Is that a big issue?
I could easily do that as a condition of approval, but it's, in my opinion, over the years, designing systems like this, it's well within the Caltex are like 32 inches high. They're I think 52 inches wide, and they're 7.5 feet long. So there's plenty of capacity plus the stone. So plus it's in addition to what we had proposed prior. The plan had been proposed without any recharge prior. It was accepted, and we moved on. The issue only came up when we wanted to raise the foundation 4 inches. And we provided some recharge for the roof runoff.
Right, no, that's completely understood, and that's accurate. But when we did go for the site inspection, that was a lot of water. We just want to make sure it's got a place to go appropriately for the neighbors and for the homeowner, by the way. Because if they've got water in the basement, that's a big problem.
John, what about we approve it and he's got to provide the data before we'll give a certificate of compliance? Because you'd like them to get the foundation in, but you'd like to get the foundation in while the ground is dry. That's the key, to get in quick now so they can clean up.
Sure, but the problem with we've done conditional orders before, like landscape plans that are conditional upon approval of the commission. And we certainly have done that in the past, but we don't wait until the certificate of compliance, which sometimes takes.
Well, then maybe we tell them before they can start framing the house that it has to be provided to us. Just let them get the concrete in, because that's where all the mess comes from.
Oh, I understand. We want to move this along so we don't delay it.
Right.
Bob, how long will it take you to get those calcs?
I can have it this probably next week, say.
All right, and what we're looking for is the calculation of the roof runoff will fit within the specs, the manufacturer's specs for the 4 recharge chambers. It doesn't sound complicated.
I understand.
And assuming that it fits.
I understand.
The specs match, and as Tom said, it's scaled to the amount of roof runoff. I mean, I'm comfortable with that, making that as a condition. Arthur, any comments, questions? You're on mute, Arthur.
Everybody's lucky for that. I do, Mr. Chairman, have one observation, but I'd prefer to let one of the abutters, Lisa Cool, go before me.
Oh, sure. No, I see that. I'm very bad at looking at hands on the screen there. Ms. Cool, welcome.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen and women. So I am the direct abutter, and I'm excited to have a new house built next to me, but I've seen a lot of water, and it wasn't just in the hole. We've had some rainstorms, and the water's creeping over to my way. Now, I've lived here in this house for over 20 years. I have water in my basement, and I can attest that the water table here is extremely high. And when the brook raises, when the water fills the brook, that's when I get more of a problem. And I noticed that when they dug the hole for the foundation, we had, I think we had rain that time. And I think that attributed to the water table fill. I'm concerned with my property being flooded. And what's my protection?
Well, the amount of water is not going to change either by way of ground or rainfall, but it may be displaced. So we're concerned with slowing it down rather than directing it onto your property. And that's the purpose of the recharge, the Caltech chambers. It slows the water down so that it can get recharged or absorbed back into the earth at a slower rate rather than running across the surface towards your house. Now, if you're on Robin Street looking at the foundation hole, are you on the left or the right?
I'm on the left. I'm closer to the brook.
This is between the Trout Brook and the 37 Robins.
Correct.
So you're
understood.
I'm just very concerned that it's going to flood me more. That if those Caltex are going to prevent the flood, and that's going to be the guarantee, have at it.
Well, the manufacturer might guarantee it, but I'm not sure we can. But that's the purpose of it. And Bob, you might want to explain, from the builder's perspective, what you envision happening with those 4 recharge chambers.
Oh, with the gutters and downspouts directed to the Caltech chambers, it creates a volume for storage, and over time it's leached into the ground and dispersed rather than running off directly as it typically does now. So it's just a matter of attenuating the runoff off the site, minimizing the runoff off the site.
So I will not get any water from their property.
You shouldn't get any more than what you get now from the property. If you're below them, you're getting some water right now from them.
Okay, well, I've definitely noticed that there has been flooding more towards my driveway ever since they dug the hole. Once they removed the trees and dug the hole, that's when there was more water coming my way. I just don't want I don't want any more water in my basement is what I want.
Well, digging the hole should actually have retained more water because it made more of a pond for them. Should be less water for you.
I have pictures that there's water coming over. So if the Caltech chambers is something that's going to be engineering the water away, I'm happy with it. I just want to make sure I don't have any damage to my house.
Completely understandable.
Yes.
I'll provide the numbers and show that there'll be no increase in runoff off the property.
Okay.
Bob, yeah, it was a little difficult to hear you. Can you repeat that, Bob?
I'll provide the numbers to demonstrate that the capacity of the Caltech recharges are sufficient so there's no additional runoff off the property.
Right. Thank you. Arthur, do you have anything that would respond to Ms. Cool's concerns?
Not directly, Mr. Chairman, but while on site, we had the observation of gradient of the likelihood of water issues from Myers Lane, both surface water and the possibility of subsurface water. But my post-site visit thinking was, might it be worthwhile also speaking with the town engineering department to see whether or not some remediation is needed at the intersection of Myers and Robbins Street.
That might make sense. I don't know if, Steve, you can certainly talk to, Chase, Miranda, or Joe Prondak, all of them. I'm not sure they'll run out and put in a catch basin, but Arthur, I think your observation was accurate that the water seemed to be running down Myers Lane because there is a bit of a hill when it approaches Robin Street, and then it kind of curves around to the right and would head towards the brook and towards Miss Cool's house. But that would be irrespective of the building of the house.
Correct. Totally independent of it. it may have been something that has been a pre-existing condition all along, and they may not have a solution tomorrow, but if they can get it into the queue for future projects, if there's agreement on that, it'd be very well worthwhile bringing it to their attention as a possible partial solution.
Understood and agreed. Any other comments from commissioners? Wendy, anything? Ingrid, I can't see you, or Todd, anything else?
No.
John, you do have another hand.
I don't see it.
Haley Byron, I believe.
No, I lowered it. Thank you. I live on the other side of this lot, opposite Myers Lane, 23 Robbins Street. And I was just going to follow up with what you had suggested about something being done on Myers Lane, the runoff. And I wasn't sure who is being referenced as being responsible for that project. I'm just listening in as a curiosity because I've been watching this project develop, and obviously there's a general concern about water. And I'm just anxious to hear the numbers that are have been requested with whether or not that's going to satisfy the concern with the water in the lot. But more generally, the comment about having something done about the water runoff on Myers Lane, but that can be dealt with at another time.
All right, thank you very much. And I think that you made an accurate observation there that, you know, we can't really mix this particular building project with the Myers Lane to Robin Street runoff issue. That is somewhat of a different issue. We just don't want to have this project increase that amount of water. And it appears that the Caltech chambers are designed to do that. And again, I say that in anticipation of getting the specifications from Mr. Hannigan. Any other comments from commissioners, abutters, members of the public? And I can't see all of the hands or folks here. I don't see any others. All right. Well, is there a consensus then that we should consider? We'd have to have two votes because it is a change to the order conditions. So the first vote would be whether or not it's a minor revision. And the second one would be to whether or not to agree to revise the original order of conditions in accordance with these plans, keeping in mind that both votes would be contingent upon receiving the proper scaling of the roof runoff and the impervious surface would be within the specification capacity of the 4 recharge Caltech chambers. Is there such a motion? The first one would be that this would be a minor revision to the existing order of conditions.
Hi, John.
Right, Todd has made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Arthur. All right, sir. Thank you. Is there any discussion among the commissioners? All right, hearing none, I'll ask for a vote, and I'm just looking at my screen. There's no particular order here, but Todd, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Arthur Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ingrid, how do you vote?
Aye.
Hans, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well, John Kiernan. So that's unanimous. And that is contingent upon your submission, Bob, if you can get it to Kathy and Steve, it would be great. All right. Are you there, Bob?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we're good to go. We need a second vote now, and that is to accept the revision to the original order of conditions. Is there such a motion?
I'll put forward that motion.
Hans, thank you very much. Is there a second to Hans's motion to accept this revision? Todd, you seconded it. Is there any discussion among the commissioners? Hearing none, how do you vote, Todd?
Yes.
How do you vote, Arthur?
Yes.
Hans?
Yes.
Ingrid,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and John Kiernan. Aye, yes. So you got it unanimous. So you've got your revisions, Bob. But you need to get to us the calculations, specifications scaled to those 4 Caltech chambers.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's patience on this one.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda, it is request for certificate of compliance, 105 Cabot Street. Steve, is that continued?
That is continued. Yes, please.
All right, and that's at the.
I have an email from Stenbeck and Taylor asking for a continuance.
All right, thank you very much. Do they want that put onto the June agenda?
Yes, please.
All right, next on the agenda is number 9, request for certificate of compliance at 175 Governor Stoughton Lane. I will recuse myself.
We are not done with that, John. So neither this one or the next one for Holland and Unquity, we got a request for a continuance for that as well.
Both of them. All right, good news. Off to the June, the meeting on June 14th. Next on the agenda is number 11, revised landscape plan 593 Blue Hill Avenue. Yeah, Jeff, are you still there?
I am here. That happened quickly. Wow. Okay. So I did send some information out last minute, and that included the abutter letter to 18 Bose Hill Road and the information from the owner's attorney in regards to the escrow amount that's being held back right now in regards to the plantings, and a memorandum that there would be a bond issued to the Conservation Commission for those plantings after the 90-day escrow period ended. John, I sent them to you. I sent them to Steve and Kathy. I know the other commission members hadn't seen them. I apologize for that. We did receive those 11th hour. So I don't know if, I know Steve read them. I don't know if, John, you had a chance to read them. But that said, we also did have the abutters. We had not been in contact with the abutters. We had sent out the registered letter.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was just suggesting that during the discussions on site at the time of the original order of conditions, there was a discussion, and the applicant said that agreed with the neighbor that yes, we'll put in a screening landscape trees. So I thought everybody was happy, and I know that there was some concern that the homeowner perhaps wouldn't like the 4 or 6, I guess there are 4 in his area of the evergreen trees that are going in there. And I know several people have made attempts, and Jeff, you did make contact with the neighbor, and you sent a letter. And have you heard a response from the neighbor?
Well, when I sent you out a copy of the certified mail letter that we had sent out to the owners. At the time I sent it out, which is about 3 o'clock today, we hadn't heard. But at not 6 o'clock tonight, we did get an email from the owner. So they asked that we don't put any pine trees in. So kind of threw a monkey wrench in. The initial landscaping plan that was proposed to you folks back in 2017 that we recently unearthed had 11 pine trees back along that back property line between white pine and Norway spruce. The revised plan that we showed to you, we had 6 Norway spruce back there. And the owners asked for none of those pine trees back there. So we'd like to work with the owners to get that straightened out, what they want back there, and present a plan to you and a letter from them saying they're okay with it. So I guess we're actually going to have to continue this one as well. But that said, I would like to go over 2 more things before we do continue it. We're happy to work with the abutters. We'll get their blessing on whatever trees they want back there. We'll get a letter from them that says they do agree with that, and we'll present that final plan to you hopefully at your next meeting. We would like to at the last meeting, we did say that all the other trees that were shown on that landscaping plan, the buffer enhancements, the plantings along the front driveway, all of those were all set with the commission. We were just left with the back property line. Is that the case, I believe?
Yes.
And we would like to go ahead and plant those other trees now while we're still in a good planting season. Get all those front trees planted while we work with the abutter to get that final plan on the back property line, if that's okay with the commission. Okay.
It is with me, but I'll defer to others who have, greater knowledge of the different kinds of trees and shrubs that are going in there.
Makes sense. Makes very good sense to plant now.
And so we'll just get the whatever the abutters want on a piece of, we'll get that on the landscaping plan and present that to you. And that leaves the case with the bond to be in place for the commission. John, did you get a chance to read the letter from the attorney? Are you okay with that language?
Yes, I don't have it in front of me. I've got it in, just give me a minute. It's not a long letter, so I can probably read it. I can read, this is a letter dated May 10th, 2022 to the Conservation Commission regarding 593 Blue Hill Avenue. Dear Sir or Madam, please be informed that this office represented 591 Blue Hill LLC in the sale of the above referenced property. Now remember, the 591 was the owner, but that's the property that now fronts on Blue Hill Avenue. And the 593 is the one in back that is the subject of this order. As evidenced by the attached escrow agreement at the closing, an amount of $67,200 of seller funds was placed in escrow with the buyer's attorney for a period of 90 days to ensure the planting of plants as per the amended landscaping plan, which is to be approved by the Conservation Committee. Release of escrow funds is conditioned upon the purchase of a bond to be posted with the Town of Milton Conservation Commission to ensure vegetation of plants for 2 years. Should you have any questions or require additional information, please do not hesitate to contact me. Very truly yours, Boris Maiden, M-A-I-D-E-N, who is the attorney for 593 Blue Hill Avenue. So that all makes sense and is consistent with our prior discussions that the escrow amount can be discharged as long as the bond is placed with us. There's an escrow agreement here that he attached to it, and it says basically what the letter says, that the amount of $67,200 will be held back for the period of 2 years to ensure the survival rate, which the DEP standard is 75% survival.
The only thing I would ask of that, as that part goes, that 67,000 was based on the price of that original plan. And when we come back in front of the commission with the final plan, we'd like to set a bond amount that's more in line with what the revised plan will show.
I think that's quite reasonable because the plan that's now under consideration is much scaled down from the massive plan that was initially described. So what I suggest is if we go to the next meeting and you'll presumably by that time have at least a letter agreement from the neighbor, you can finalize the landscaping plan and we can take a closer look at the 67,000. But I agree with you. That's a rather significant amount for the number of trees that are going in.
Yeah, thank you. That's appreciated. Yeah, so we'll come up with some numbers with that too. So all that said, I guess we're asking right now then that we continue the hearing. We'll try to wrap up all these loose ends and come in with the final number, final plan, and we can agree to a bond number and hopefully get some plants planted in the meantime.
That makes good sense, Jeff. Thank you very much. Are there any commissioners that have a question or comment? Are there abutters? particularly the neighbor. But hearing none, we'll continue this until the June 14th meeting of the Conservation Commission.
All right, thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff, very much.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jeff.
Next is signage program for Conservation Commission owned land. And that's number 12 that Arthur, you might want to address this in conjunction with 13, which is a proposed memorial to honor John Cronin.
I agree, Mr. Chairman, and if you will allow, I'd like to take 13 first. Did everybody get a copy from Kathy in their packet of the proposed memorial?
Yes.
Okay, great. We previously agreed in concept that we would do something for John relative to his leadership role as a conservationist, really the father of conservation, if we can use that appellation for John. And this particular memorial is one that is located elsewhere in town. It was costed out competitively. And Steve, I think the price was about $1,800 for this. By comparison, when my youngest brother passed away from COVID and was buried with our parents in Milton Cemetery because he was divorced, a ground marker for him was about $940. I would say, relatively speaking, this Wentworth firm on the South Shore provides a value-based product. And what we seek at this particular time would be a motion to approve this, if that is your pleasure, and to approve its funding. For funding, we have a special projects line, and that is based upon monies that were given to the Milton Conservation Commission by the Milton Land Conservation Trust, of which John Cronin was a trustee. And the total amount of dollars that we have, based upon what I have in my possession about the 2021, the end of 2020, was $12,811. So it's probably a little bit, maybe a little bit higher now. So we have more than sufficient funds for that. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the background information, and it's now up to the will of the Conservation Commission. I have met, John and I spoke about giving the Cronin family some options as to where they might like a memorial for John located.
That was my question.
John had an idea, I had an idea, they have an idea. They would like to have it up near at present, they'd like to have it up near the Holland Dam. The exact location that they had an interest in is, however, DCR property. So they're going to look at other alternatives, either in that area or elsewhere in town. That's an easy decision once it's done. The bigger decision is for us to make an approval of what's proposed at the present time, or disapproval, whatever your preference.
In light of the fact that he used to be, John was the MDC commissioner for a while, which is now DCR. If that's the preference of the Cronin family, I should think that DCR would wholeheartedly support that.
The Cronin family has the map provided by Alan in hand, and we'll see what it is that they come up with. I mean, if you go in that direction, we just don't know yet.
All right, fine. Well, in terms of the expenditure, I'm enthusiastically in support of this expenditure. And it's actually pretty ironic that we got the money from John. You know, when the Milton Land Conservation Trust was dissolved, and some of the land went to the Wildlands Trust and some of the land went to us, there was nevertheless monies left over in the trust. And on 2 successive years, they, meaning John Cronin and Ted Wendell and Peter Jeffries, gave the money to us. So I think it's particularly appropriate that we expend that money to honor his legacy as a true champion of conservation.
Agreed.
Right, Tom Palmer, are you in favor of this expenditure?
Certainly am.
All right, Ingrid,
Yes, absolutely.
Wendy,
Yes.
Todd,
Yes.
and Hans?
Yes, and I apologize for having to step away for a second.
Oh, certainly. All right. Well, then, how about a motion? It might be appropriate, Arthur, for you to make the motion to honor John in this fashion.
Mr. Chairman, then I'll make a motion to move forward with the purchase by the Conservation Commission of the bench memorial honoring John Cronin in the amount provided by the contractor, which was, Steve, about $1,800.
I think it was more closer to 1,700.
Well, in that vicinity, in that range, and we can,
Approximate 18, yes.
right, we can finalize.
Right.
And there may be a couple of pennies up with time elapsed since the time that we did that. It'll take about, the contractor said when I spoke with them, 3 to 6 months because of issues that are going on with supply chain and so on down the line. And unfortunately, with the tremendous backlog of monuments for COVID-19 victims. So.
All right, a wonderful motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thanks, Ingrid, very much. Any further discussion? Oh, by the way, we should have a discussion about the inscription. Something beyond his name, perhaps.
I
think it was on the sheet. Yeah, wasn't it on the sheet?
There's a suggestion, Steve, on the document from the vendor.
I think so.
I thought there was.
Hang on. Wentworth. I'm looking at it right now. Honoring John A. Cronin, the father of Milton Conservation.
Perfect.
And by Milton Conservation Commission 2022.
Who is the mother of Milton Conservation?
Good question.
Could you say parents? Be gender neutral.
All right. Without further discussion, Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Todd, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Yes.
Tom Palmer?
Yes.
Hans?
Yes.
And yes for me, John Kiernan.
Mr. Chairman, the last item is the Conservation Commission sign initiative. This has been in the works for about 3 or 4 years now. And I provided information in the packets, notably for Tom, who had not been a part of this. But just to recap, this program was approved by the Sign Commission, by the Conservation Commission unanimously, and by the Select Board unanimously. Steve and I have worked on identifying a number of sites throughout the town for these signs. The DPW has located a contractor and provided estimates and will install them, if I can use this quote, Mr. Attorney, pro bono. What I would propose, Steve, you have the estimate for these from Chase that I sent you. I can't get to my screen because I'm on the computer where it's stored, but I did send it to you if you'd be willing to pull that up. These signs are, right, and he's pulling up, thank you, Tom, for that. The estimate for a sign as obtained by the DPW. And these are congruent with the recommendations of the Wildland Trust. I attended a sign and marking program that they sponsored a couple of years ago. And the type of signage that one wants for something of this nature is relatively expensive because of the need for all types of weather durability and a long life. We're talking about maybe 20 to 25 years per sign, rather than what one would find on on other types of signage. It's, again, weather resistant, mildew resistant. Some of them are even paint resistant, sun resistant, so they retain their color and health over a protracted period of time.
And I've just pulled it up. I'm sorry I can't share it for some reason, but I can tell you about it. It says 47.5 inches by 30. It's an oval by 1.5 inch routed sign painted green/white single-sided. And the text is Milton 1640 settled, Milton Conservation Commission. And the unit rate is $965.
Thank you, Steve. And Mr. Chairman, what I would propose, if the commission is so inclined to now move on this, is that we might use the balance of that fund for a number of the signs to put up. I would estimate that we would have, Steve, 10 signs to locate.
On that order, yes.
Yeah, from what we did in our past work.
All right, it's my understanding that the monies that we received were put into the account that is known as the revolving fund. And by town meeting from, I don't know, 10 years ago, we are limited to using that money for conservation purposes, which is pretty broadly defined. And we can expend up to, but only up to $15,000 per year. So with the monies received simply from the Milton Conservation Land Trust, and we've certainly added monies from the fines. We have sufficient funds there. We're well within the $15,000 annual limitation. And I would support this expenditure as pursuant to our mandate for public education. I think the signs are a good step towards having people recognize and realize and appreciate the lands that represent our natural resources.
If I may add, Mr. Chairman, a year ago this past summer, I reviewed this with John Cronin at his home in Hummerock, and he was extremely supportive and advocated the town moving forward with what he thought was something that would be of a great enhancement to the community.
Good news. Is there a motion to support this? And I think we need to put a dollar or a number of signs on it. And I think what you say, $945.
Right. How about if we said not to exceed $10,000? So we leave at least several $1,000s in that fund in case we need it.
Yes.
If we have any additional requests, we can come back to the commission, if that made sense.
Makes sense to me. So is that a motion from you if you want to restate it formally, Arthur?
Unless somebody else wishes to make the motion, Mr. Chairman, I will move that the Conservation Commission expend up to $10,000 for the purchase of the signs as in the design as previously approved, with the monies coming from the identified fund from the Milton Conservation Land Trust that was conveyed to the Milton Conservation Commission.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Good. We have a lot of seconds. Get them all. Everybody seconded that one. All right. Any discussion? I'll go individually. Arthur, how do you vote?
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Ingrid?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Hans?
Emphatic yes.
Great. And another emphatic yes, too, from John Kiernan. Thank you. Good
Thank you,
move.
Mr. Chairman. Then I will, if you agree, follow up with both Chase Berkeley and with the Granite Company and get moving forward.
Perfect. Sounds like a good plan. That brings us to additional business. Steve, what do we have for additional business?
One item of National Grid. We spoke about this a couple of months ago. This is the proposed gas main relay project at Audubon Road, Harold Street, Mager Ave, and Weston Street. And this is an exempt from regulation project. We spoke about this, and I think I showed you plans.
Reynolds Lane toward Herrick Drive.
Somebody's going there right now. No, evidently. So we saw that, and they have sample best management practices in their package with erosion controls, etc. So I just wanted to let people know who are still watching or who will watch this, that work is going to happen. Let's see, do they say? It's a 3 plus or minus foot trench to install the gas line in these roadways, 1,790 linear feet of cast iron gas lines. They would be being replaced with plastic gas lines. And I'm sorry, I don't have a date here when it's going to be done, but I would imagine it's this construction season. Secondly, a quick note for everyone. We're going to have a pre-construction meeting at Pine Tree Brook tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. And the members who are going to be with that are NEPRA, DCR, GZA, and the contractor, Maverick Construction, and myself. Just FYI, in case you're interested in attending.
Where on Pine Tree Brook?
Right at Canton Ave. That's the project for the Canton Pine Tree Brook Dam that's going to come out of there.
Yes, I helped Ally flag the wetlands in.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So I'll be there at 11.
Which day is it?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, great.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I had conveyed some concerns about whether or not the removal of the dam would have any negative impact upon Pope's Pond. There was concern about silting and its possible effect upon the life of the pond and the quality of life for marine animals in the pond. And Steve, have you had a chance to follow up on that, or do we have a sense of how their concerns are either allayed or mitigated?
No, but that's the main reason we're having this pre-construction meeting.
Excellent. Good. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, certainly.
I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that.
Right, and apropos of your comment, I don't know, I can't remember who was included on the email chain going around between and among the different stakeholders. But the plan of action included regrading the channel, which raised a red flag in my mind that, wait a minute, what do you mean regrading the channel? What is that? Are you taking, the bottom of the brook out, or are you moving it and making it larger, or what? And that was one of the reasons that I had requested that particular line item on the agenda be addressed with Steve at this pre-construction meeting. So that is, if you haven't seen that, I will be able to forward it around. I thought some people were copied on it, but I'm not sure everybody was. But I'll make sure you get that, because it's got a list of like 6 or 7 items for discussion tomorrow at the meeting. That was the one that concerned me, and that's exactly what it sounds like the neighbor was concerned about, that if there's any kind of, change in the bottom of the channel, so where does all that silt go to?
Sure.
Probably the bottom.
I would say, being familiar with the site, it's a concrete trench with a little step, and as I understand, the step is coming out. But I don't know that anything other than the step is coming out. As far as the siltation of Pope's Pond, that is ongoing, and that will continue whether this project happens or not. That's just, I think, a feature of ponds. They fill up over time, and Pope's is well on its way to filling up.
Agreed entirely, and that was my impression as well, Tom. That just the small dam concrete piece will be coming out, but we'll hear about that tomorrow.
Yeah, so having overseen work on impoundments, um, there are different ways to execute in-water work. And, you know, there may be, depending on the approach, there may be, whether or not they're going to try to isolate the area of the work, or if they're going to do it in the wet or the dry. There is, as a part of the actual removal of the material, there is a chance of that becoming mobile, existing sediments, but obviously the pond itself is a large enough water system that it won't move far, once it reaches that open water section.
Agreed.
But-
And with concrete, I don't think it's going to go very far if it's just concrete.
It likely wouldn't. I can try to make that meeting.
Always helpful if you can make it.
Where exactly is the meeting site?
Right at Canton Ave and Pine Tree Brook. Basically, parking would be in the next door service station and machine garage there.
It's the upstream side.
Right, the upstream side.
The Unquity and Canton Avenue intersection.
Yes.
Would that be
Okay,
right?
so we're right by that gas station.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
And the intent of the project is to improve fish passage. I mean, it's not just a dam removal. I mean, it's
Right. That's what it's for.
On that note, if I may, Mr. Chairman, and
Yes, sir.
Ingrid, you may recall, could be maybe 4 years ago when we did a site visit there with representatives from DCR and an intern that they had. We also went a little further up beyond the ice skating rink where there was an earthen dam.
Yes.
And that had rechanneled some of the water, which was having a negative effect upon fish migration in that area. And maybe Steve, during the site visit, you could ask about whether or not there's any intended plan for that. We saw rechanneling at that location, if I remember correctly, that was having an adverse impact.
Thank you, Arthur. I shall do.
Ingrid, and John, is that a correct recollection?
Yes. Correct. Yeah, I'm going to forward to everybody, but I should read to you the email. And this is to Steve and John. Steve, what's John's name? Fiore.
Yes.
And John Fiore is from Maverick Construction.
Right.
And I had written an email, to John Fiore and Steve. I wholeheartedly support Steve's proposed on-site pre-construction meeting. I would also appreciate some discussion with Steve of the means and methods of, this is a quote, minor grading of the channel within the work area once the concrete dam has been removed, end quote. Tom, that goes to what you just said. That's my concern, that it's not just the removal of the concrete step, but that's actually in the scope of work. Minor grading of the channel within the work area once the concrete dam has been removed.
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? It seems to me, because it's a concrete trench there, that the water moves pretty quickly, and there's probably not a lot of silt behind that step. But I don't know. I would guess it's sort of a cobble pavement, but I don't know.
Right.
All right, I'll forward this email chain to everybody. But if whoever can be present, I think we've identified the area, and if at least Steve and if Hans or if anybody and everybody can make it, would be great. I cannot, but I think it's a good idea to keep an eye on. Good plan, by the way. But I just want to make sure it's done appropriately.
I think that was placed there to begin with before there was a Yulin rink in order to flood the area in winter, because you can see the notches on either side of the concrete trench where the checkboards were to be placed to hold the water back.
Right.
Yeah, so that was probably a DCR project, a rink project from say 1935 or 1940 or something. That's why that's there to begin with, I believe.
Makes sense.
That's probably correct. I used to skate there before the Yulin rink was built.
Yeah, before we needed a building to go skating.
True.
I had a grammar school friend
When
that
we
used
had
to
winters.
raft in that watershed area that Tom described. He'd go up there and he'd cut trees and build his own rafts and be out there like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn in the middle of the water.
All right, I'm just sending the email, but I won't get bogged down. Do we have any other items of additional business? I know, Tommy, you had sent around some additional information about the federal funding or state funding for the Lamb Estate property. And it's been received. We don't have anything, it's not on the agenda, so we can't take any kind of official action, but I don't know if you wanted to make a statement about that, or I haven't read it. I saw your email. I appreciate it, but I was traveling at the time, so I actually haven't read the data, but it does relate to, I guess, some $20,000 reimbursement that went to the town. Is that correct?
I think the number was 28, perhaps.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Tom, you're on mute. Tom, we can't hear you.
I lost my connection, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so nobody can answer this question, right? Why is it backwards?
Why is it?
Yeah, why is it?
When you
look
show it
at
to
the
us,
printing
it
here,
looks.
when you look at that printing, doesn't it look like it's backwards?
No.
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 Are you looking at a mirror? Is that a mirror?
I don't get it, because to me it looks backwards when I'm looking at myself. It looks like it says Nalimum.
That's
in Milton.
That's a video
So I don't
setting
get
that
it.
you can adjust.
You know, I'm too old to figure out questions like this, so I'm just going to let that one sit.
Okay. All right. Is there any other business? All right. No? Okay. I thought you were on mute, Tom.
I
Did
was.
Did
I
you
was
hear
for
what
a
I said?
while. You said any other business just now.
No, what I said, and you may have been disconnected, but we did receive your email with information about the federal and or state funding of the Lamb Estate. And I
Yes,
didn't know if
well-
you wanted to talk about that. I said, we don't have anything on the agenda, so it would not be appropriate under the public meeting law to vote on anything. But if you wanted to state something, that might be your opportunity as additional business.
All right. I thought that would have been interest to the members because it answered some of the questions I was asking. And what jumped out at me about it was not only was there evidence of state and federal contributions, but there was actual text of the agreement between the state and the town about what the town's obligations were on receipt of those funds. And that information, I think, is relevant to the whole discussion. I worked it out to that the town did not end up paying any money for the 7.5 acres because it was assessed at $55,000, and the town got $28,000 from the state and $28,000 from the federal government. So in effect, the town paid nothing to put that land in conservation. But in order to get all that money, the Conservation Commission members of that time all had to sign the agreement saying that we would protect it. That's the same land that we just unprotected. So it seemed from those papers that we had decided we knew better than those members from 1978. I think this is going to be discussed at town meeting, of course, and I think I will present those documents and say, here's the information, here's what was paid, and here's what we agreed to do when we accepted the money. Because certainly the town solicited state and federal, and by doing so, gained additional partners in the investment to make that land conservation land. So it was not just between the town and the lambs, it was between the town, the lambs, the Commonwealth, and the federal government. That was my conclusion. And you probably saw, if you looked at the documents, that I got them via public records request. And who knows if that agreement is somewhere in a file in Milton. To me, that agreement is very relevant, but it never popped up in the time we were talking about this issue.
John, did town council examine the papers that Tom is bringing up?
I believe he has them. I do not know. I was out. I was traveling last week. I saw Tom's email on Sunday. I read the email, but I did not read the attachment because I was on my cell phone at an airport.
Right.
I think they went to him, didn't they, Tom?
No, just to you, to us.
No, I mean prior to his rendering of an opinion. That's what I meant.
Prior to that, I had asked him, I think at a public meeting, whether or not there would be any impact on us in the land swap if the Commonwealth or the federal government had contributed to it. And Kevin Freitag's response was that if in fact, he said, I have no knowledge that they did. I've heard people talk about it, but I've not seen any documents or any information that suggests that they did make some payments. But if they did, it would be accompanied by a contract, and the contract would be amendable. Therefore, there was no prohibition on our vote. I believe
I remember him saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I looked at, if you look at those papers, you'll see that part of the agreement is that when the deed is executed at Norfolk or recorded in Norfolk, then a copy of this contract will be appended to the deed. So when I read that, I assumed that Kevin never went to Norfolk and got the deed. Although he distributed a copy of the deed, he didn't distribute a copy of the agreement. So that made me think that whatever copy of the deed that he passed around, he didn't get it by going to the registry, because then he would have found this agreement.
So one thing I think is being...
You might be right, but I think the copy of I know the copy of the deed that I got from Ann Sheffield. She sent it to me, and I know at some point I sent what I had to Kevin Freitag.
There was a PDF called Milton Plans that was marked up in pink and yellow that I thought was, or originated with him, but maybe not. I just remember that little group of documents called Milton Plans that included the deed and the article from 1978. Maybe that didn't originate from him. Maybe it was from Ann Sheffield. I don't know.
Yeah, I sure don't know. All right. Well, I'm sure there'll be vigorous debate at the town meeting next week.
By the way, did the surplus declaration get signed by all the members? Remember, Kevin said you have to include that language about declaring this land surplus.
Yes,
When
no,
you-
that was the motion.
Yes, did that get signed by everybody?
I don't think the motion was.
Required a
written.
roll call vote.
It was a roll call vote, yeah.
I guess I'm not up to date on that. That means if you vote live, you don't need to write it down because there will be something written down when we're all gone. And that's what I'm wondering about.
Well, it'll be in the
This is
minutes.
recorded in electronic format, and there's also meeting notes that are recorded per the open meeting law.
Do you remember Kevin saying, do you remember him saying, you got to include that language about it being surplus land?
Yes, well, absolutely. And
Yeah,
the
so-
motion, I think, was revised to include that.
Yeah, so where's that written down right now?
I think Hans just answered you. It's in the written it's in the digital record. It's on the Zoom cablecast, and it's in the minutes.
In Steve's minutes?
Yeah, we do that all the time.
You know, I was thinking to myself, forgive me, but I'm glad I'm not signing anything that says this is surplus because I don't think that's the case. But I guess you will sign it when you sign everything else.
I don't think we have anything to sign, but I get your point.
I see what you mean. There's a special category where you don't have to sign something. It's curious. You did see, if you open up that documents I distributed, you'll see the signatures of all the Concom members from 1978, including Robert Oldfield and Marty Curtis and so forth. And they're signed there with their names and their addresses. And so it's a kind of interesting little window on what was going on back then.
All right. Any other additional business? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn? You want to stay here? Come on.
So moved.
All right. Second? I'll
Second.
second. I got to get to work. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Steve.